Please join us in a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
To the republic,
one nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
liberty and justice.
justice for all.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of New Jersey, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2022 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2021, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Ms. Adams.
Here.
Ms. Cripe.
Here.
Mr. DeLuca.
Here.
Mr. McGeehee.
Here.
Mayor Daffis.
Present.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all municipal public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the governing body has a discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting. And whereas desire the governing body to comply with the provisions of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, Township of Maplewood does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in a formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the governing body by the public, except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observation of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Ms. Adams.
Yes.
Ms. Cripe.
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca.
Yes.
Mr. McGeehee.
Yes.
Mayor Daffis.
Yes. Thank you, Township Clerk Fritzen. And welcome, friends and neighbors, to our July 5th public session of the Maplewood Township Committee, Maplewood's governing body. We have a fulsome agenda tonight, so we're going to jump right into it. We will begin with an appointment on one of our boards and committees. Tonight's board and committee is the Community Board on Police. That will lead us into our first of two public comment sessions. The first public comment session is for agenda items only. Then we will get into our Board of Health meeting. Every first meeting of every month, we include our Board of Health for an update in all matters health and wellness in the township. Then we have an introduction of an ordinance that relates to necessary infrastructure improvements that will be undertaken by the joint meeting of Essex and Union counties, which the township is a member of. Then we will go into administrative reports, reports from elected officials, and then discussion items. We have 6 discussion items this evening. And then we have a robust consent agenda, all the items previously published, as has been the entire agenda. That will lead us into our second public comment period for any subject matter. And then we will remain in public to discuss the a cannabis license presentation to the governing body. And then we will adjourn. So with that, let's begin with boards and committees. And I am going to make sure that we have Miss Sarah Rothman with us. Ms. Barnett, can you confirm that?
Yes, she is over with the panelists now.
Terrific. So Ms. Rothman, thank you for raising your hand and taking up the mantle to volunteer and to serve our wonderful community, in this instance, as a member of the Community Board on Police. Kindly introduce yourself and let us know about your interest on serving on the board.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Rothman. I've lived in Maplewood for about 9 years. I have kids at Clinton. I've got one headed to Psalms. And I've been pretty active with the Clinton PTA, member at Bethel, and also I've performed with the South Orange Community Orchestra. So I'm very excited in each of these capacities to begin a role on the community board of police, strengthening ties between the community and the police. I would say that I'm very excited to learn more about the police department. And in my professional life, I am a scientist and I work on clinical trials for drugs that have never been tested in humans before. So I have a strong data background, and I would say the crux of my work involves mixing strictly quantitative information with patient narratives and anecdotal data as well. So I'm excited to apply those skills to the board on police.
Thank you, Sarah. It's wonderful to hear a little bit about you. And again, we really thank you for, on top of everything else that you have to do as a busy mom and as a busy professional, you want to serve in this capacity on this very substantive board. With that, as the liaison, one of the two liaisons to the Community Board on Police, I'm going to move your appointment, the appointment of Sarah Rothman onto the Maple Woods Community Board on Police. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Creighton,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. McGehee,
Yes, congratulations.
Mayor Daffis.
Yes, absolutely. Congratulations, Sarah. And we'll see you at our first meeting, no time to waste, tomorrow evening, starting at 7:30 on Zoom as well. So congratulations and welcome aboard. See you then.
So much. Thanks.
Terrific. Thank you again. So this leads us to our first public comment portion of the meeting for agenda items only. I see that we have our county liaison, Ms. Valentina Richardson Green, with us. I'm going to offer her the courtesy to address the governing body. Ms. Green, welcome. Nice to have you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I don't really have much to report. The county has started its summer concert series. Recently, we delivered some more pamphlets, but if more are needed, I will definitely get that out to everyone. But as far as any other updates, there are none at this time, but I am available for any questions at any time.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson Green. We appreciate that. Are there any questions for Ms. Green from my colleagues? Well, seeing none, you're welcome to join us. Maybe some questions will come up in the second public comment period, but we also understand that you have an evening and you're welcome to depart, and we'll see you at the next public session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Waltz. Mr. Waltz, will you kindly offer the rules for public comment on agenda items only?
Good evening, Mayor and Township Committee. We'll now begin the first public comment portion of the meeting on agenda items only. If any meeting attendee would like to address the Township Committee, please use the raise your hand function. We will convert you over to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes to speak. Would anybody like to address the Township Committee? Mayor, first, I have a first name only, Josh, but in parentheses says Mountain Avenue. We'll convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes to speak. Josh, you're muted.
Great. Again, I'm Josh. Me and other residents of Mountain Ave, specifically 26 and 28, are deeply concerned with the agenda item regarding the proposed exception submission to DEP. Let me briefly provide some background for those members of the committee who are not aware. Mountain Avenue residents were notified only a few weeks ago, in early May 2022, that the town had been in discussions with Maple Terrace residents and DEP for the past 3 years regarding a proposal to improve the drainage system connecting Mountain Ave and Maple Terrace, one that would significantly impact the properties of 26 and 28 Mountain Ave. The proposal that the town selected, again, without any input from any Mountain Ave resident, includes enclosing the open drainage ditch that exists on the properties of Maple Terrace, including the mayor's, taking 10% of the backyard of 26 Mountain Ave and some of 28 Mountain Ave's backyard, moving the opening of the drainage pipe from Maple Terrace to Mountain Ave properties, and introducing a 12-foot concrete and steel structure into our yards, both of which are home to small children, including one with special needs. thereby posing safety risk to the kids that live on these properties and potentially worsening the flooding that occurs. We were assured by the mayor on a May 24th Zoom call, when time did not permit a single Mountain Avenue resident to ask a question, that a separate meeting to discuss our concerns and answer our questions would be scheduled. In the past 6 weeks, that never occurred. In an attempt to prompt the promised meeting and more fully detail the bases for our objections, we submitted a letter outlining our apprehensions and posing questions to the mayor and town engineer on June 18th, 3 weeks ago. We received no acknowledgement and no response. Only upon reading on the town website the agenda for tonight's meeting were we made aware of the town's plan to proceed with submitting the hardship exception request to DEP, which, if approved, would enable the town to move forward with the proposal that the Mountain Ave residents were never apprised of previously,
30 seconds.
object to now, and that completely ignores the repeated requests of the Mountain Ave residents to enclose the Maple Ave portion of the drainage ditch. We've got 4 asks tonight. Please don't submit the hardship exception requests to enclose the Maple Terrace portion without enclosing the Maple Ave portion, the Mountain Ave portion. Please don't submit to the DEP the hardship exception request until Mountain Ave residents have had the opportunity to have a different firm assess the proposal, something we
10
proposed
seconds.
before. Have all the committee members review our concerns in our June 18th letter, and please meet with us to discuss our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Duly noted. Mr.
Mayor, next we have Fred Meyer. We'll convert to the panel and allow you 3 minutes to speak. As a reminder, please turn your camera on so that the committee can see you when you are addressing it. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening. I've joined you tonight to comment on the same issue, decision to move forward with the culvert improvement project on about Maple Terrace. I first want to acknowledge that as you just heard, some of the residents along the area affected by this project have some reasonable concerns about moving forward at this juncture, and I fully understand the issues that they're bringing up. Nonetheless, I feel that there are outweighing concerns. Last year on September 1st, we lost our neighbor, Pat Jeffrey, due to the unsafe conditions that have still not been rectified here. We will be going into another hurricane season without full safety updates in this area. We need to move forward now to avoid missing another hurricane season next year with needless, dangerous conditions. Further, DEP has given us a rather extraordinary opportunity to address this situation, one that I fear we will lose if we do not take advantage of it. My neighbors here on Maple Terrace know that I often speak to the town council about these issues, and they are often asking me, when will the town do something about it? When are we going to do this? Is it going forward? When is it going to happen? I urge the town council to take action and to move this project forward so we can resolve the safety issues as soon as possible. I understand the flood issues are things that we can address later. We need to do safety now to protect human life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your comment.
Mayor, next I have, apologize, just the first name again, Mindy. We'll convert you over to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, are you able to hear me and see me? I can see myself, so I will assume you can. So this is Mindy Davidowski speaking from 13 Maple Terrace. We are on the same agenda item. We are very sympathetic to everyone's concerns, and I just want to vocalize, in addition to Fred's eloquently worded concerns, that it is not sustainable that our yard continues to serve as the floodplain and drain hole for water coming from South Mountain down. It's not ideal that our driveway becomes a river when the capacity of the new system and the old system both are exceeded. And it's not ideal that there has to be work done with easements, etc. But unfortunately, we are talking about a system that is currently failing catastrophically. It is getting worse. And we don't see it as possible to delay action another year or 2 or 3. And so our ask would be that, given the current situations, the solution is considerate of that. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Devistow. Thank you for your comment. Mr. Waltz, do we have additional members of the public?
Yes, Mayor. Next, I have Jenny F. Converts to a panelist, and I have 3 minutes to speak. You are muted.
Thank you for letting me know that. My apologies. And let me start video. And oh, now you can see me. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak. We wholeheartedly agree with Fred and Mindy that something needs to be done. We couldn't agree more. Pat was obviously our neighbor too. I think for us, we want to make sure that we're not just moving of a safety issue, but that we're ensuring safety for everyone involved, which I know that is the overall goal. So in looking at the exception, we're not only looking to enclose one part of the waterway, but both parts of the waterway. By putting that 12-foot opening that Josh referred to, we're obviously now moving of a larger problem and one that we've spoken about that we're not sure how we can secure or monitor with lots of children in the area. So we do not want to wait a year or two. We want to take action. We just want to be a part of the long-term appropriate action to create change for all that's equitable and safe. So again, we couldn't agree more with the flooding. We experience it as well. We're neighbors, we're back to back, but we want to make sure that we're putting forth the right solution, which I know everyone has done a lot of research on, and that we can ensure safety for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you for your comment.
Mayor,
Are there
I
any-
see no one else.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Waltz. We're going to close this public comment period, and we're going to move on to our Board of Health meeting. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Board of Health Chair, Mr. McGehee.
Thank you, Mayor. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231 of Public Laws of 1975, this is to state for the record adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2022 to the News Record and Star Ledger December 2021, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Ms. Adams?
Here.
Ms. Craig?
Here.
Mayor Daffis?
Here.
Mr. DeLuca?
Here.
Mr. McGehee?
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the Board of Health has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas ZAR of the Maplewood Board of Health to comply with the provision of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Maplewood Board of Health, the Township of Maplewood, that it does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the Board of Health by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observation of the actions and discussions of the Board of Health at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Craig?
Yes.
Mayor Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. I will now entertain a motion to approve the Board of Health minutes from the June 8th, 2022 meeting as on the screen.
Move them.
Is there a
Second.
second? Any
Second.
discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Craig?
Yes.
Mayor Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Abstain. All right, moving on to the next agenda item, we'll now hear from Health Officer, Ms. Davenport, and I will yield the floor to her.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Sorry. One of the things I did want to mention, I think this is official now, is that the Maplewood Health Department is now the interim health department for the village of South Orange. That contract has been finalized, and what we are doing is taking care of any lingering inspections that are required by the state to be completed within a year, and provide them with nursing and administrative assistance, especially during any public health emergency. So that is our main role right now for them. Our COVID stats for the Township of Maplewood, as of June 2022, we had 385 cases with a total of 6,375 cases. This is lesser cases than we had last month. We had about 577. So it is going down, but it's still very high. Just to let you know that the state has now taken on the CDC's guidance for community levels and measuring those. That is that the CDC and now the state is looking at new COVID-19 admissions per 100,000 population over a 7-day total, as well as the percent of staffed inpatient beds that are available or occupied by COVID-19 patients within a 7-day average. So as you can see, all of Essex is under medium. And on the right side of the screen, they offer recommendations on what people are to do during the medium phase of where we are. Again, we're always monitoring community transmission levels. So these will be made available on our township website as well. You may be wondering why everyone seems to be getting COVID. At least in our department, we are like, why is everyone getting COVID? There is Omicron subvariants, as you can see on the right side column. We have Omicron, but there are a lot more subvariants that we're finding when we do breakthrough case testing. So you can see we're up to a new Omicron subvariant of BA.4 and now BA.5. Which is kind of taken over and grown increasingly over the time period. So just wanted to make you all aware that we are monitoring this, still monitoring for various variants, and want to emphasize for people to continue to get vaccinated, continue to get boosted, because that helps to prevent the variants to grow or create in a community where there's a lot of unvaccinated people and then spread. Here's our COVID case status for the month of June. As you can see, that green trend line is still going upward. I did mention last month that it was leveling off. It's not a steep incline, but it is still an incline nonetheless. You can see these spikes here throughout the month, but overall, we are still monitoring it. And the 7-day average is looking pretty low right here. So. Again, just a reminder that for encouraging vaccination and testing again, the county, as well as some pediatricians' offices, are now offering the Pfizer pediatric COVID booster, as well as the Pfizer and Moderna pediatric vaccine for those who are 6 months to 4 years of age. We would recommend that people talk to their doctor to determine which one would be the best one for them. But hopefully, if people can get that before September, we'll be in a better place 2 months from now. Monkeypox, just to update you all on another infectious disease that we are also monitoring with the state and CDC. As of June 28th, the CDC confirmed that we have 306 confirmed monkeypox or orthopox cases in the United States. What's important here to note is that we now have 4 cases in New Jersey. So we are ramping up to provide information and education to our healthcare providers. They do know and are made aware by the state that they should contact us at the local health department, at which point we will assist them with contact tracing and then get the vaccine to those who have been identified as close contacts. That vaccine is not available to the general population. It is only available at this time to those who have been close contacts of a confirmed positive monkeypox case, excuse me. So just want to make sure that everyone knows that we are monitoring that. And if you have any questions, the state health department has a really good fact sheet but just in general, monkeypox is a rare disease and the risk to the general population is low. As you know, we've had Braven health screenings once a month. That's through Braven Blue Cross Blue Shield, and it's been successful. Just want to bring up that for the month of July, that date has changed to July 18th, still on Monday, but just a week prior because we had to do a switch. So I just want to make everyone aware of that. That is still at the Maplewood Senior Center, but just on July 18th. Finally, exciting news. We are finally here. We are, as of Monday, we are starting our summer meals program at Maple Crest Park, right in front of the parking lot or within the Maple Crest Park, behind the parking lot, right next to Inspirational Dance. So hopefully people can come, people can spread the word. All kids eat free and no questions asked. So hope everyone will take advantage of that for breakfast and lunch this summer. And finally, I'm mentioning National Night Out, where we will have Braven Health screening, and the Township Health Department will be there as well to assist the Maplewood Police Department in providing education and Municipal Alliance drug and alcohol prevention information. I'm mentioning it in July because August 2nd is the date, and it's from 6 to 9, but that's also the date of our next Board of Health meeting. So just want to make sure that people go to National Night Out. It's a great, fun community building event, and then tune into the Township Committee meeting that evening at 8 o'clock. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davenport. Would any of my colleagues like to address the Board of Health at this time? Seeing none, Mr. Waltz, does anyone in the public like to address the Board of Health at this time?
I see no one, Mr. McGeehee.
Thank you, Mr. Waltz. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
You? Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Cripe?
Yes.
Mayor Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Luca?
Yes.
Mr. McGeehee?
Yes. Thanks, Ms. Fritzen. Mr. Mayor, I yield the floor.
Thank you, Mr. McGeehee. This brings us to the introduction of an ordinance that we have tonight, bond ordinance number 3065-22. Ms. Fritzen?
Yes, Mayor. Item number 8, introduction of a new ordinance, bond ordinance number 3065-22, providing for phase 3 of the local unit's allocable share of the flood mitigation facilities project of the joint meeting of Essex and Union counties, by and in the Township of Maplewood, in the County of Essex, State of New Jersey, the local unit, appropriating $2,750,000 in bonds or notes to finance the costs thereof.
Right.
Can I get a
Mr.
motion?
Mayor, I'll move this if that's okay. I move the passage of this ordinance on its first reading, publication according to the law, in Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on July 19th of 2022.
I second the motion. Ms. Fritzen?
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Cripe?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGeehee?
Yes.
Mayor Daffis?
Yes, thank you. Moving on to reports from departments. I don't believe we have any departments with us this evening to report on. So administrative reports, we'll start with Township Administrator Gimes.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few small items tonight. Regarding the registrar's office, due to some staffing issues that we're having for reasons you were made aware of in a separate correspondence, we're operating temporarily on an appointment-only basis. We have identified some temporary help to provide services in that interim period, and we'll be posting a more regular schedule shortly. We recognize this causes an inconvenience to some residents, but circumstances beyond our control dictate this. So we ask for a little patience as we move forward, and we hope this gets resolved in due time on a more regular basis. As it relates to the ongoing issue with Hurricane Ida insurance claims, we did recently receive a notice that our next insurance payment of approximately $227,000 will be coming in sometime in the matter of days. And in addition to that, we're in the process of setting up an all hands meeting with all the stakeholders to prepare for the next large check. Currently, engineering and DPW is working on obtaining all the necessary documents that they are requesting to ensure a quick resolution of our claims. Bid openings pursuant to past approved budgetary items. We placed 2 bids in the newspaper this past week. Number 1 being the EV charging stations at the municipal building, and then also the municipal building and roof, municipal building roof and HVAC system. So we await those bids, and we will award accordingly when that time comes. And as the health officer mentioned, I signed all the contracts and effectuated the agreement with South Orange to help provide them services during their transition. That agreement is going to last for 6 months, and then we'll reevaluate it as we get closer, but that is in place. And lastly, related to agenda item 229-22, we're rejecting a bid that came in over estimate. And speaking with the engineer, we're looking to possibly break up that project by doing the gas main extension portion first and possibly the boiler part either at the end of the year with a bond ordinance or in next year's capital item. With that, that is all my report, unless you have any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'm going to offer Assistant Administrator Barnett the opportunity for a report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick things. So first, to go off of what Administrator Jimes said regarding the registrar hours by appointment, for anybody who's interested in making an appointment or needs to look some more into that, that information is now available on the homepage of our website, right there at the top in the header, so that it's nice and easy to see. And then as that new schedule is published, it'll be made publicly available there as well, just so everybody's on the same page. With regards to some of the services that have been available through the clerk's office, this week we are going to do a very early rollout of 2 of our clerk's office GovPilot modules. This isn't our full GovPilot launch, but it is something that the clerk's office has said that they are ready to move forward with. And it's something that by digitizing those forms, it'll allow us to be a bit more efficient as we continue to work with the unprecedented circumstances that the administrator mentioned earlier. And then last but not least, folks who are signed up to our emails may have received some information about the master plan earlier today. We have a big PR push going out about that. I'm assuming that somebody will probably mention it in their report, so I will stop there, but just want to say that that information is out, and if anyone has questions, that is available on our website now, and there is also a link in that press release to our master plan webpage where we will be updating residents moving forward.
Thank you, Township Assistant Administrator Barnett. Any questions for Assistant Administrator Barnett from my colleagues? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move over to Township Attorney Desiderio.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I had gotten a call today from the attorney for 7 West Parker. Are you going to cover that in your report?
I will, but
I have nothing else.
Some things if you wish.
No, I was simply going to say that that based on discussions that the Township Committee has considered it, and it'll go on the agenda for July 19th for a resolution to refer it to the Planning Board. The process would then be that the Planning Board would have a hearing to determine its consistency with the master plan. If they in fact find that, then it would come back to the Township Committee, and there would be an ordinance put on for to adopt it as the zoning for that particular site. So I will report that to the attorney and let him know what the status is. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Desiderio. Any questions for Mr. Desiderio? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move over to Township Clerk Fritzen.
Thank you, Mayor. So as directed at the last Township Committee meeting, the notice to bidders for the plenary retail consumption liquor license went out with a return date of Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022 at 10 a.m. And it will appear twice in the Star Ledger, twice in the local paper. And again, bids are due back on August 2nd with a minimum bid of $450,000. Talking about liquor licenses, we did issue renewals for all the townships' ABC licenses from 2022 through June of 2023. and they were all out in a timely manner. Those licenses did expire on June 30th. I would anticipate possibly a hearing on the ABC transfer of the Casper's license, possibly at our next meeting. And I just haven't sent you the information yet, just awaiting a go on that from their attorney. And my final item, lots of event planning meetings to schedule coming up. And I'll be handling a lot of those meetings will be starting next week, and you'll all get notification. And thank you so much for your support.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fritzen. Any questions for our township clerk from my colleagues? Seeing none, we're going to move over to reports from elected officials, and we're going to begin this evening with Committee Member Craig.
Thank you, Mayor Dacus. Thank you, everyone, for being present. Wanted to give a few updates from a couple of the committees. As you all know from yesterday, the pool is officially open. Pool season has begun. So we are working really hard with the committee to think of ways, unique ways of making it more equitable for members of the community. So please keep an eye out for some changes that are coming down the pike based off of some real radical changes we'll make if possible, because we really want to see not only our membership boosts, but representation across the town in those memberships as well. The Seniors Advisory Committee meets tomorrow. We've had we've had another person step down, and 'tis the season of people moving and changing careers, and we're seeing more and more often folks stepping into more roles at their current paid position. So we've had folks step down. So again, my pitch for all who are listening and who will be reviewing later on is please volunteer. The work, the changes, the efforts don't happen without community support, and we really need people to step up and offer the help. And if you're worried about whether or not you've got the time or the ability to do it, please reach out to any one of us in the township committee, and we happily will sit and talk to you and give you the breakdown of actually what it takes to be a part of these committees. Recreational assistance funds are still available. We still have a few spots in our camps, as well as a couple of swim lessons. If you need financial assistance, please reach out to the recreation department, and we will do what we can to help accommodate you if possible. Finally, this weekend is Maple Woodstock. I don't know about you, but I'm super excited. July 9th and 10th, announcements went out for folks who actually got spots during the Canopy lottery. So hopefully you did reply back by yesterday, because that's when the responses were due. And let's get ready to have a great time, listening to music, celebrating community, and just enjoying 2 days in our parks with lots of fun. That's about it. Thank you very much. And again, please volunteer.
Thank you, Committee Member Craig. Committee Member McGehee.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. I just have a few brief things, and then I will yield the floor back over to my colleagues. As we discussed last week, the South Essex Fire Department has launched. So this is day 5, and things are going well. There's still obviously a lot of logistics that we're trying to iron out, everything from staffing and some other logistics in regards to coverage to Maple Woodstock, and just an assortment of little factors. But all in all, the fire departments have literally merged. The tours are now integrated with different firefighters and captains and other level officers from various departments. They are spending time together at the respective 3 firehouses. They're bonding. So the relationships are developing quickly. They've been out on several calls. They had a busy weekend, extending from day 1, and they were there. And as some have already said, they just feel refreshed knowing every time they go to a call that they're there, with the appropriate numbers for anything that they need. So things are going quite well at this point with the merged department. And with that, I will just jump around on my report here in front of me and just communicate that effective this month, due to the fire merger, that the public safety meeting will no longer have a fire component. during the committee meeting. This now, the fire department is merged and now is managed by a different entity. So at the public safety meetings moving forward, it'll just be police and social services. And staying on public safety, just wanted to provide the public with an update. I did speak to some of the key residents, but we are taking an assessment of Baker and Ridgewood. There were some concerns that came out of the public safety committee meeting. So representation from our police department, traffic bureau, as well as our engineering department were present with myself last Thursday afternoon. And we did an assessment of the whole situation, which we presented at engineering, public and public works meeting on the 13th, a week from tomorrow. Also, we recognize and are in receiving of the correspondence relating some follow-up to Tuscan and Valley Street intersection. And I will look to the chief and others to provide a response to that sometime next week. From a communications perspective, myself, Ms. Barnett, and Ms. Adams had our meeting last week. As already communicated, the master plan kickoff has begun. The mayor will provide more context and narrative regarding that, so I will not steal any thunder there. It's exciting. And then also we've started our education regarding the year-round gas-powered leaf blower ban, which is going to happen right around the corner, 6 months away. And then also we continue to do our work on the Gov pilot, and a special shout out to our administrator, Ms. Barnett, for efforts there. And then finally, we're doing an assessment of a New Jersey 211 campaign, and so we'll have more to come in the weeks ahead. And with that, that is my report for this month, and I yield the floor back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. McGeehee, and thank you for taking such a great lead as Public Safety Chair in terms of assessing some of the public safety concerns that residents constantly bring to our attention by email or in person, different intersections. Relooking at, reassessing as needs have changed, as traffic has increased, and so on and so forth. So thank you for always staying on top of those. And there have been a lot of them. So Committee Member Adams.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to share my screen if I can. Just to dovetail on what Mr. McGeehee commented on with the Green Team and actually Environmental Advisory and Quiet Maplewood have been in touch with the Home Depot in Union to offer people some money back for transitioning their gas-powered leaf blowers to battery-operated ones, and to look for areas that we can further improve on that going forward. But just so people know, that's available to them. Stopping sharing, but and then also going to another share. Sorry, gotta give the extra shout outs are necessary for the return of Maplewood stock, as Ms. Kripe and I are the liaisons to the committee. They have a fabulous lineup scheduled. So it's noon to 10 on Saturday and noon to about 9:30 or so on Sunday, July 9th and 10th. If you're an Elk, if you happen to be an Elk or know an Elk, or you contact the South Orange Elks Club, of which I'm a member, because they are looking for some additional assistance in the beer and wine garden, specifically around, I think, Saturday evening. So if you want to pour some beer, pour some wine, or check IDs, you can still hear all the music. And it's something that everybody loves to hang out in, and we want to make sure that we've got it covered and there's people to pour the drinks. So go to South Orange Elks or give them a club, or website, or give them a call and offer your services. And then lastly, I just wanted to, I don't know, can we pass a resolution at every meeting that we send to every official that we can, whether it's Senate, Congress, or state and federal, on doing something? I mean, what's it going to take with guns right now? So it's more important, apparently. I think we need to refocus that it's pretty important for us in a free country that we should be able to go to a parade and sit on the curb and not worry about getting shot. And we should be able to do that more importantly than someone's right to bear arms or to have especially military style weapons. So I'm sure, we just keep regurgitating the same thing. So I think we should regurgitate a resolution literally at every meeting to send to our state and federal representatives, to just ask them to do more because they're not listening. So maybe if we just keep saying it over and over again by a formal resolution, and Liz can just have that on speed mail. So just my thought, because I'm so frustrated. So anyway, my thoughts are very much with people in Highland Park and the other, 10 mass shootings that took place over the weekend. That's all I have.
Thank you, Committee Member Adams, and I'm 100% with you behind the resolution of that nature. During the discussion items, gun safety is on the agenda. I put it there. I will be updating our community about some new gun safety bills that were signed by the governor, 7 of them actually, that will put New Jersey ahead of the rest of the nation in terms of gun safety, but more needs to be done certainly at the federal level. So thanks for speaking out about that. Deputy Mayor DeLuca, you're up next.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, 3 things. One, Mr. Jimes mentioned about our insurance coverage for Storm Ida. We're running on parallel tracks. We're also working with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and we've submitted 14 projects to them. 3 of them have been obligated, which means that they've gone through the process and they are ready to be funded. And that totals $651,000. And then the other 11 projects total $1,375,000. So between what FEMA will pay and our insurance, most of the damage from Hurricane Ida will be covered, and we'll be working. Of course, we don't get double pay. If insurance pays, FEMA doesn't. If the insurance doesn't pay, and also the deductible, FEMA will pay some of that. So we continue to move forward with them. I want to announce that Maplewood was the recipient of a $10,000 grant from the Board of Public Utilities to prepare a community energy plan. So we have our Sustainable Maplewood meeting on Thursday morning. We'll be talking about that. And the Environmental Advisory Committee under Bob McCoy's leadership will be doing most of the work on that, along with the Green Team and Tracy Woods. And lastly, the Neighborhood Preservation Program up on Springfield Avenue. We received another grant of $170,000 to add to some town money to do a total reconfiguration of the front parking lot at DeHart Park. And that's the parking lot that's along Burnett Avenue. We're going to be improving the traffic flow, creating a sidewalk along the street, improving crosswalks, and really making that a much better entrance for the park. Additionally, we do this project in the Neighborhood Preservation Program is in partnership with the Springfield Avenue Partnership, and they have selected an artist to do work on the ground mural at Yale Corner. So that will be, there was an RFP process, there was a selection committee, and so now we have an artist, and so the artist has designed something, and it will be a community build. We'll actually pick a date in July when we will be out there painting this design in Yale Corner. And then one other project I just want to mention, we now have Wi-Fi at the gazebo. We ran a line as part of our program from the Hilton branch of the library to the gazebo. We have a temporary hookup with a router there. Our larger router is caught up in the supply chain issues, but at least right now we do have Wi-Fi. So people want to go sit out there, be able to use the Wi-Fi. And we also have some benches that we put out in the library there as part of the program to make the library and that grass area a little more friendly and usable. So That's what I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor DeLuca. Great to hear about the Wi-Fi at the gazebo. That's a wonderful added addition that we've been hoping for a really long time. So thank you. I have a few items. A couple of them have been mentioned, so I'm not going to go into them, and a few that have not. 7 West Parker redevelopment. So the Township Committee spot zoned the former Gleason site, made it an area in need of redevelopment. There is a local developer, and I must stress also a local developer who also happens to be a person of color, which is unheard of when you look at these big development teams in New Jersey and New York. Someone who is a neighbor right around the corner of the site, who is interested in developing that. And we, after fulsome discussion with him and his team, in our Economic Development Committee meetings, we have come to an agreement on a redevelopment plan. That plan will be introduced soon, and then at the next meeting of the Township Committee, and then sent to the Planning Board for their review and their opinion as to whether or not it is in keeping with the current master plan of the Township of Maplewood. And speaking of the master plan, as committee member McGeehee mentioned, we are live. We are live. Our planner, BFJ, put together a virtual workshop, which I forwarded earlier today in social media, and which Assistant Administrator Barnett has also blasted townwide. We will continue forwarding that information. This is an opportunity for everyone in the community to get involved. Tell us what is important to you as we together develop a new blueprint for our town. The master plan covers everything that we are always talking about, all the issues that we address: traffic, zoning, land use, development, sustainability, resiliency, meaning climate change related, flood mitigation, and so on and so forth. This is your opportunity to raise your voice. Make sure your voice is included. Make sure you're represented. You can get all of that information and participate. It takes about 20 minutes. It's interactive. It's not just a simple survey. It's a little more substantive than that. Please take about 20 minutes and engage with us. You can find that at Maplewood, let me make sure I get it here, maplewoodmasterplanworkshop.com, maplewoodmasterplanworkshop.com, and it should be under news on the landing page of our new and improved township website as well. That virtual workshop will greatly inform many upcoming public engagement sessions that we're going to do in the coming months, into the fall and into winter and early next year as well. So let's all get involved and raise our voices and start shaping our town's new blueprint. The state announced its budget. Governor Murphy did on Friday of last week, a whopping $50 billion. Which includes a lot of important things to localities like for us here in Maplewood and in neighboring South Orange. I'm pleased to announce that our advocacy for the return of the energy tax receipts to our municipalities was successful. I'm proud to have been among over 200 mayors, not all 564, I'm afraid, but over 200 mayors who advocated for the return of the ETRs. This is important funding for our budgets. And this was money that was always ours until it was diverted in previous administrations to help balance the state budget. Unfortunately, and very disappointingly, I must add, it is nowhere near the kind of funding that we were hoping for. The original proposal for a $331 million pot to distribute among municipalities was reduced to a mere $75 million. Working with our CFO to do a back of the napkin calculation to sort of get an idea of what that's going to mean for us. But in our similar sister town of South Orange, there they did a quick and dirty calculation, and it amounted to about $36,000. That's disappointing. It frankly is very disappointing, but we hope that this opens the door on this issue and that we can again advocate next year for a full restoration of this important funding. We celebrated July 4th again for the first time since the pandemic. And I know that a lot of people were disappointed that it wasn't the big celebration that has become, our great tradition in our beautiful town. But we're going to get there. We're rebuilding the committee that has traditionally, put that together. It takes at least a year in planning. Certainly last year at this time, we were under a second wave of COVID, and we were not thinking about all of our community events coming back together. So what we did this year is a start. We had our bike parade through Maplewood Village, and it was wonderful to see all the kids on their bikes decorated in their best red, white, and blue. Committee member Adams brought out her tandem bike from long ago, which was really cool. And we all had a really good time. And the kids ended up over by the station house in the park where we gave out some cupcakes and we met people and everybody was joyous and happy. And it was very patriotic. And then we opened our pools to all, as committee member Kripe noted, and it was a beautiful thing. I went over there myself and spent some time, and it was great to see new faces. We had, according to Community Services calculation, 1,500 members attended on July 4th and 539 non-members. Those are 539 people in our community that finally had the opportunity to enjoy our amazing facility. And yes, changes are on the way to make it more equitable and days like July 4th to be more common. Clearly, we can do this even on a big holiday like July 4th. Clearly, we have the capacity and we have, as long as we have the political will, that's the only thing holding us back. And we'll talk about that more soon. Committee member Adams and Kripe talked about Maplewood stock. It is really a homecoming for our community to see this great return of this amazing event. I'll be out there with everybody else and we're going to have a great time. And yes, committee member McGehee already mentioned that as of Friday, July 1st, our fire merger is official, which is exciting. And then last but not least, I just want to note that committee member Adams and I, through her leadership, through the code committee, have begun putting together a subcommittee to look at our outdoor dining and streeteries. What is it going to look like from 2023 on, after we have officially voted to carry on outdoor dining in our community, which is a beautiful thing. And let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. I did not. Thank you for indulging me on all of those updates. And with that, we're moving over to our discussion items. The first discussion item is called regulating signs. Committee member Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to table this until we have a chance to talk code about it. I had a long conversation with our Director of Community Development, and we were talking about our existing ordinance, section 271, and some of the things that are already outlined there. So, Mr. Desiderio, I'm going to be sending you that for your input. And then it'll be further discussed at our code meeting on whenever that is, next Tuesday, I guess. Right? Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm like, I don't even know what day it is. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. That's really easy. The second discussion item is cannabis. Tonight, we're going to be reviewing another cannabis business application. This is for a cultivation license. We have already reviewed other applications. I think we have met the endorsement of all of the categories that are in our ordinance. We have sort of maxed out at this point. And so I thought I would bring up a few items. The first one is whether we should close applications or continue to consider applications. Some of our endorsements, the state issued some micro licenses last week. Some of our local endorsees who also fall into the category of micro licenses did not receive a license from the state, at least at this round. So, the question is, should we continue considering other applications for the same categories, or should we at this point close applications and allow ourselves the opportunity to reopen them at some later point in time? My personal opinion is that we should close applications at this time. We certainly can't forget that we're charging people a good amount of money to apply here locally. So, but I want to hear from the rest of you. Anyone?
I agree with you. I think there'd be, sort of like we do with liquor licenses. We don't really, give them out unless they're available. And I think capping it right now and seeing what the market will bear makes sense. And also not to put anybody through a process that, they're not going to be able to effectuate using it, very quickly anyway. So I would cap it at the moment.
Thank you.
Agree.
Agree. Anyone else? Committee member Cripe? Committee member McGehee?
Yeah, I was just trying to find a list in my weed folder here, but I do feel like we have definitely had exhaustive conversations over the last several months regarding all types of cannabis facilities, and knowing that just our recommendation only allows, it's like a letter, a ticket to the party doesn't mean you're going to get in the party, because it's the state that really kind of lets you in behind the velvet rope. So at this point, I feel like we've sent a lot of tickets over, and so far we only have one. So I'm open to, also to the point you made, is saving people their money. I mean, they are incurring a cost. So yeah, we should table it outside of what we're going to do tonight, and then go from there.
Thank you for your input. So Mr. Desiderio, do we need an official motion on this? Mr. Desiderio? I think you're muted.
You're mute.
I'm sorry. No, we don't need an official motion. Excuse me, a motion, yes. Resolution, no. Just a motion to, I would say, temporarily suspend the processing of new cannabis licenses until further notice of the Township Committee.
After tonight's review, yes. Okay.
Well, we still have delivery capacity for delivery licenses.
Yep.
So I think we ought to be retail, manufacturing and cultivating.
And cultivation, right. So those three categories.
Will be suspended. Will be
Second.
suspended.
Okay. So we need a roll call on that?
I think it's a good idea to have it on record.
Ms. Fritzen?
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Cripe?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor Daffis?
Yes. Thank you.
Mayor, Ms. Barnett, do you process those initially or Ms. De Palma?
Ms. De Palma.
That's Ms. De Palma.
Would you convey that to her, that the township has suspended new applications on those three categories? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Desiderio. That was helpful. The next subtopic to this topic is the 2% host. So we, as everyone knows, at this point, we are entitled to a 2% return on retail sales. And we've talked before, sort of informally, about taking a portion of that and putting it into towards social justice, right? So we can walk our talk. And I'm trying to get us to sort of start planning that. What portion of the 2%, and how do we figure out what that's going to look like? Any thoughts? Deputy Mayor DeLuca?
Thank you. So I think we're still in the learning stage. we plugged in, I believe it's $177,000 in cannabis tax for this year's budget. I don't know if we're going to come in on that number, come below it, but certainly when we're up to 4 retailers, and also there are transaction taxes for the manufacturer and the cultivator too. So I think what we ought to do is to focus on allocating a portion of these dollars in the 2023 budget for social justice work. And I'm not sure whether it should be a percentage of the 2% or a flat amount, but I think it'd be useful to start gathering information of how other municipalities, both in New Jersey, if any, and certainly across the country, have done this. We talked also when we were putting together this whole package that some of the groundbreaking work we're doing with our crisis intervention team is a social justice move. And there's certainly a lot of others. So I just think that we ought to, spend some time thinking about it and build it into the 2023 budget.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I like that approach. And Deputy Mayor DeLuca, if you don't mind, I'm going to include you in a little committee that I'm putting together for this purpose, because we need another committee, like we need another hole in our heads. But I think this is important, and we should start looking at some of the models that are already being created. In New York, for instance, they're already working on this before they have their other regulations figured out. So I think we can learn and copy from them, and I'd be happy to work with you on that and anyone else who's interested in doing that. Other comments about this?
One thing I just want.
Go ahead, committee member Cripe, go ahead.
One thing I just want to keep in mind is for us to remember to keep in mind is the fact that communities of color have been highly impacted by overregulation of cannabis. And now that we have this opportunity to put things towards social justice, I believe a significant portion of that should be allocated or at least set aside for communities of color, even including possibly organizing some form of micro loan for folks who are interested in also being involved in the legal distribution, manufacture, cultivation of cannabis. So as long as I just want to put that on record that we keep that in.
That's a great idea. I love that. Great idea. Committee member McGee.
So, Mayor, I've said this when we had some of the other previous meetings. I'm big on expungement and really seeing some work done there. I'm a little bit disappointed that it hasn't moved as fast as it should. And I will be willing to take those dollars and put it toward a legal team to help push that expungement. I think that's true social justice. If there's a social justice, it's balancing and leveling out the field for, frankly, brothers and sisters that are incarcerated or have records and can't get jobs because they decided to get a dime bag 10, 12, 15 years ago. It's unacceptable to me. So I like to see that be addressed.
Absolutely. Great point. Committee member Adams.
I agree with everything that's been said. And I also think we need to make sure we put some of it in our general revenues for our budget, because we are always short on that. And since we're so developed, we don't really have opportunities like this. This is probably the first opportunity I've heard of an availability of tax revenue for our budgeting purposes, like ever. Just sort of like waiting for another liquor license to be allotted. So, I think we need to make sure we're really thoughtful and try to carefully cover everything and maybe save a tax point for people with regard to revenue too. Definitely.
Okay. And the last part of this is, just sort of footnoting, if you will, that there is an item, remaining that we need to negotiate host agreements with the applicants that have been conditionally approved. So that's something that is outstanding. And I think we can do that through our existing review committee unless you all have other thoughts about it. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Didn't we do that? We did that with the one that we got
The medical dispensary, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So maybe it's just as the others get approved for their state license, right? I mean, I don't know that we need to do them all at once.
Right. No, but I'm saying that we should sort of start thinking about what it is that we want to put in there. Certainly now we have a better idea of what the state's going to be looking for when they audit these things. They're going to want to look at measurable, enforceable, specific asks of these businesses. You know, and we have some of that already, you know, like contributing towards the municipal alliance, working with the library and local recruitment. But to cover some of the things that Mr. McGeehee mentioned, you know, like expungements, you know, we can add some of these other very specific, very accountable elements, which the state has said they're going to be looking for when they audit these host agreements. They want to make sure basically that, you know, we didn't do a wink, wink, you know, that there is really a give and take here in the community's interest. Deputy Mayor DeLuca, did you want to say something? No. Okay.
No.
Okay. I saw you say it. I didn't hear you. Audio delay. Anyone else? Okay. All right. So we're going to move on to discussion item 3, parking in Maplewood Village. I sort of previewed this last time as a coming attraction. So now I'm going to go into a little bit greater detail. So last month, the Maplewood Village Alliance, as a board, voted unanimously in favor of tiered paid parking in Maplewood Village. They recommend that the town, in partnership with them, the MVA, implement tiered paid parking in Maplewood Village, with parking revenue earmarked to build a parking deck in the village and toward other necessary parking improvements. The MVA recommends paid parking in combination with better wayfinding, enforcement, and public communications strategy. These are the other components that are part of a necessary parking strategy. So, you know, I don't think we need to rehash all of this because we've been talking about it for years, but we've had consultants look at this. We've done studies. We know how many spots we have. We know how many spots we don't have and how many spots we need. You never have enough spots, but instituting paid parking will help with the turnover of parking spots and with parking enforcement, and drive parking to more off the grid spots like Denell through tiered pricing and helping both our traffic flow and capacity deficit issues. It's easy and inexpensive to do this these days. We already have paid parking in our commuter lots through the very widely available and accessible Park Mobile app. And we also have a couple of, you know, I don't remember the name of it. It escapes me right now, where you can actually use cash if you need to for those who are not on a smartphone. And that existing technology would allow us to turn on the switch, if you will, to other zones in the village for tiered paid parking. Paid parking makes it easier for fair and consistent enforcement of parking. And we recognize that, you know, this would be a shocking, very big change that would need to be communicated well in advance and allow people some time to familiarize themselves with the new parking structure. And also, of course, we don't want to deter people from visiting the village, but we know, again, the same data also shows us that free parking is an economic loss to the village. It just deters people from trying to find a parking spot if they can't find it and not shopping or dining here. And it also increases traffic congestion because people are constantly doing the loop trying to find a spot when spots are not turning over. But, you know, paid parking or tiered paid parking is not the only part of this updating or wayfinding. It is difficult for out-of-towners, people visiting us for the first time, to kind of figure out where our lots are. So parking studies that we have demonstrated that inadequate wayfinding is part of the parking issue. And so the MVA recommends that wayfinding be updated to make it easier for the public to find and understand where and how to find parking in the village. And then earmarking paid parking revenue to fund a parking deck or garage or other parking improvements as necessary. And again, like I said, like anything else that's a major change or a big initiative, ensure a uniform and robust communication marketing strategy about this. Communicating where parking will always still be free. Remember, we're developing zones, right? Communicating where parking is free after certain times, information on how easy it is to use a parking app, highlighting the fact that parking apps can direct you to open spaces, meaning less circling around for parking, less traffic congestion, as I said, dissemination of parking maps, and letting people know overall that the changes that have been made are going to make it easier for folks to find parking. So again, this is something that has been studied and assessed by various MVA boards. And we have talked about it too. Previous governing bodies have talked about it as well. I think, in the past, maybe the timing wasn't right, the technology wasn't there, we didn't have the studies, but now we have all the information. So I'm going to ask for two things tonight. I'm going to ask for your support to move forward with looking at how to adopt tiered paid parking in Maplewood Village, and to continue working with the MVA on developing the zones, developing the times, and all the other considerations. We're not starting from scratch because we have a parking committee already through the MVA, one that I chaired back in 2018 when I first got involved on the TC officially. And that, has some new members, but I still chair the same parking committee. And so we already have a lot of work that we've started. We're not starting from scratch. So I'm going to open it up for discussion. Anyone? Committee member Adams.
Well, that was a lot. And there's a lot to this. Right now, I think feels like, first, how do I say this? I'm not sure that building a structured parking is a solution that's desirable for Maplewood Village. I think, first of all, the expense, I think in 2021, it was around $25,000 per space to build structured parking. And there need to be a cost benefit analysis, how many parking spaces we could actually get. So I don't support any fund. If I'm still on the fence about paid parking a little bit, I understand the motivation. I also think everybody needs to know that just because you have paid parking doesn't mean you have parking spaces and you stop people from going around looking for them, and turnover increases because it doesn't. People just get tickets easier. And, working in downtowns for the last 25 plus years, parking is the issue in every single downtown, in every single municipality, in every part of the state, and in the country for that matter, based on conversations at national conferences that I've been attending for just as long. So there's a lot here. I think it should start, the conversation might start at engineering and public works. I think if this is something that Maplewood Township is going to be doing, the township needs to take the lead on it with working with the MVA, but I feel like it's a little flipped right now, and the decisions or recommendations that are being publicly made are being made by an MVA subcommittee instead of the township. And I think it should be us that does, that talks about that and brings them in. So that's why when I said there's a lot there, I don't know that we can commit to put revenue, if we do decide to charge for parking, into a structured parking deck.
Right. So listen, I think a couple of things, just kind of, I'm going to tease out some of the things that you said, if I may. Well, first off, as a downtown development expert at this point, with all of the years of experience that you have, you certainly recognize the value of paid parking, even though, as you said, paid parking is not a miracle solution that solves all problems, certainly is not. But as a downtown development, economic development expert, you recognize the value of paid parking, yes?
I recognize the value of it. I recognize the scope of it I see this as being combined with the management of our commuter parking and our jitneys. And that's why I think it needs to go to one of our standing subcommittees first to hash through that, because we have issues, that we're already talking about just with regard to jitneys and who's commuting and what that looks like. So yeah, I think there's an advantage to it. I think there's also some disadvantages to it.
Certainly, with anything in life, there's pros and there's cons. But I think this process aligns with the process that we always have in other issues and initiatives. This is an advisory recommendation by the MVA. Certainly, as a township, we would never consider something like this unless we heard from the MVA and they gave us the green light to move forward. So they have given us the green light to move forward. And so now it comes to us to either decide to move it forward and take some of the recommendations, keep some of the, not take others, in terms of the earmarking and all of that stuff. But I think even if we're going to go to code with this and engineering public works, I think both committees should be involved. Personally, I think our colleagues and our employees are going to want to have some sort of idea of where we stand as a governing body on this issue. So that's what I'm trying to get tonight. Committee member Cripe, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have some similar concerns. I am 100% team paid parking. I'm surprised it's taken us so long to actually come up with this or to even start discussing this. And yes, I understand that there are going to be some folks that are going to be very unhappy. And we will work through and address those issues and those problems as they come up. But my one concern that I have is as well as the planning board and code getting involved, having the green team be involved as well. A parking structure encourages more people to drive. And I know that one of the master plan initiatives from the previous plan was for folks to utilize the sidewalks and spaces and to get out and movement. There is an opportunity to improve maybe the lighting along Baker Street that extends all the way to Valley so that more and more people in the evenings park that way versus into a structure, which would allow them to use those spaces in the evening hours off from transit hours and still come to the village and shop and dine and do all the things that they need to do. So, and it also would add to the aesthetics of that neighborhood. I think having a nice sidewalk, maybe wider with better lighting, would be an incentive for a lot more people to visit the village.
Right. Those are good points. And thanks again. I just want to make sure we're not confusing the issues. For tonight, it's all about whether or not there's an agreement by the governing body to move forward with looking at how we can adopt paid parking in the village. We're not talking about a parking structure or what that looks like or where it goes or what the yield of the parking is. We're only talking about whether or not there is a consensus for our looking at how to institute paid parking in the village in a manner that is equitable and right for our township and our downtown.
So Mayor, I'll go next. I didn't do my homework. I would like to see the report that the MVA provided. I can read it and do my research. I'm just not comfortable making a decision yet. I'm not a liaison to MVA, so I like to see what they wrote out, more tangible, read that. even follow up and ask questions of some of the business owners who went that way. I like to have some personal conversations and get a little more feedback from the community. I mean, this has obviously been a very, especially before COVID, it's a very hot topic, and I think it still exists. But personally, tonight I'm going to have to just wait, unpack more information, and get more intel before I make a decision either way.
Okay, thank you. Fair enough. So I will forward all the studies that were done previously, certainly before you and I, Mr. McGeehee, came on board on the governing body. And since then, the consultants that we've hired to show us why paid parking would add value and help us mitigate, not solve, mitigate some of the issues that we have historically talked about as issues in our downtown. Deputy Mayor DeLuca, you certainly have the most institutional knowledge here. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I once said that I would never be the mayor that would make parking in Maplewood Village, paid parking in Maplewood Village. So I'll be glad to have you do it. I think that it makes sense for us to consider it. I would agree with Ms. Adams that we need to think about it comprehensively because so much of the downtown parking is for train commuters. We got that big lot on Baker Street. We have people who park up and down Maplewood Avenue that are commuters. Those are spaces that could go for shoppers. And then, as Ms. Kripe said, we have other areas there that sometimes it's for commuters, sometimes it's for shoppers, and we got to think through that. So I'd be willing to have a full conversation about it. Would like to remind us that the visioning process that we use with the Department of Community Affairs, the visioning plan does call for paid parking. And we looked at a couple of options there. So I think you're right, Mayor. Every consultant has suggested to us that we look at it, and I'd be willing to look at it. I don't know the process because if we're going to have all these different committees look at it, it seems kind of weird to me because it doesn't make sense. If we're going to do it, we ought to just put time aside at a township committee meeting in front of the public and just have that conversation. And we're all five of us there. And after I think Mr. McGeehee's right. We need to look at some of the information that the MVA has, others have, and really talk this out.
Okay. In a town hall kind of thing you're suggesting?
Or one of these meetings, as long as we do it before 9:30.
Okay. I don't care. TikTok. All right. So
Yeah, just one last thing on that. I think it should go to engineering and public works first so we can do some of the nuts and bolts that we won't have time for here. But also just one of the things to consider is costs associated with not structured parking, but structure of enforcing paid parking and what that looks like, because typically police don't enforce paid parking. It's usually parking enforcement officers, and whether that is run through the clerk's office. So we don't have a structure. I don't think we have enough of a system unless we create it to form a parking utility. It's certainly not a parking authority. So I think, those are things that are going to have to be considered as well. Even though you're getting revenue from paid parking, it costs money to generate that revenue, if you will.
absolutely. And these would be all considerations if there was a consensus to move in that direction.
I think you got a consensus to talk about it. Nobody wants to say because we don't have the information that you have.
Honestly, I'm a very good listener. What I heard are 2 yeses and 3 maybes. So listen, let's not force it here. I'll bring it again at another township committee meeting when we don't have all these other discussion items, and we can get into it with some presentations, and maybe we'll call some witnesses to come over and also give us more information. Because I think that there are 3 people who are a little bit uncomfortable and 2 people who are willing to move in that direction. Again, we can do hard things, and leadership requires that you get a little bit uncomfortable in order to do the right thing. Okay. So I'll stop talking now because Deputy Mayor DeLuca has the next topic.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the topic of the authorizing our department. And just for clarity, if anyone looked at the agenda, it says authorizing Maplewood Village Department. The village was put in there in error when the agenda was typed up. So this is authorizing our engineering department to submit to the Department of Environmental Protection of the state a hardship exception for the Maple Terrace drainage project. And we heard 4 speakers this earlier in the meeting, 2 residents of Mountain Ave, 2 residents of Maple Terrace. And let me just say a couple things. We've been talking about this for some time, and I think it's absolutely correct that we have been talking to the folks on Maple Terrace because that is where the project is. More recently, the project got expanded some to the backyards of Mountain, and we brought folks in. And I can understand how they felt that, you know, the discussions and planning was going on before they got involved, because it was. And it was done to address Maple Terrace. And when the engineers looked at the solution, they found that they had to create an area, headwaters, where the water would come in, and that kind of leaped over into the backyards of the folks on Mountain Avenue. But I think we have to remember that the state rules say that we cannot put this pipe and cover it right now unless we get an exception. So it's not a matter of we want more pipe or put pipe here. The rules say you can't have a pipe. So this whole process is an exception to the rules, and we have to prove why we're doing that. And we hired NV5 as our engineer to do that. And they've made I think a convincing argument that the pipe solution is the best solution, certainly better than doing nothing. And even the replacement of the walls that exist now will really not solve the problem. So the pipe solution with the fill is the best solution. And so what we're doing here tonight is we're authorizing our engineers to put that application in. It takes many, many months for the DEP to review this. They will come back and ask us. There'll be some consultation. There'll be questions that we have to answer. There'll be an opportunity for the community to give input. And I might add that nothing we do, either on on Maple Terrace or Mountain Avenue, nothing we do on private property can we do without an agreement by that property owner. So we have to get easements from each of the property owners to do this work. And some of them are perpetual easements because we have to go back and do repairs and clean up and things like that. So there will be a lot of opportunity for discussions with the individual property owners about size and scope, whether we even change some of what's being proposed because property owners are not going to be willing to work with us. So this starts the ball rolling. I don't think that we can wait to continue to have conversations, which we will. We will continue to have conversations, but we can't wait to have those conversations to submit. We need to submit now, and I would recommend to the Township Committee that we pass a motion authorizing our Department of Engineering and Public Works to submit the application for the hardship exemption.
I second that if it's a motion.
It is a motion.
Mayor?
Township Clerk Fritzen?
Mayor, you want a roll call?
Yes, please.
Yes, I think you said my name.
I did. Ms. Croy?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGeehee?
Yes.
Mayor Daffis?
Abstain.
Okay. Mayor, the next item is also mine.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to, because I haven't shared my screen in a long time, so I feel the need to do that. So I'm going to just put up here. These are the bids that we received for the new library. We received 9 bids on the 16th of June. The low bid, 16,780 from Pro Builders, and then you can see almost $20 million from Shorelines Construction. We've done due diligence on Pro. Our due diligence team is recommending to the library board, which meets tomorrow night, that they award the contract to Pro Builders. And what I'm asking the Township Committee to do tonight is to pass a motion that recommends to the library board that they award the contract to Pro Builders, the lowest responsible bidder.
I'll second it.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Craig?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor Daffis?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritton. And I have the final discussion item. It looks like we're going to go over, surprise, surprise. So first, I'm going to move that we go beyond our 9:30 time slot.
Second.
Okay, can we just vote?
Ms.
on that?
Adams?
That's not, go ahead.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Craig?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor Daffis?
Yes. Okay, so the last item is gun safety. Gun safety is on our minds. Every day is another tragedy, another mass shooting. And the recent Supreme Court decision is dangerous for all of our communities, including ours. The Supreme Court's decision against the New York legislation was also a decision against New Jersey's. There are 8 states that have so-called selective gun permitting laws. A selective gun permitting law is where you have to prove your need in order to get a permit. An objective gun permitting law is one where you have to merely meet the objective criteria. So despite having a very tough gun permitting law, New Jersey's law was deemed unconstitutional, along with 7 other states in our nation. This means that open carry can happen more easily in public spaces, such as our parks, our schools. It's absolutely alarming and incredibly dangerous. I will say that the governor this afternoon signed 7 new bills, gun safety bills, 3 of which he had included as part of his Gun Safety 3.0 challenge to our state legislature last year. And those 3 were included in the 7 that were signed today and now are law in New Jersey. I think it's worthy of letting you know a little bit about those and what they do and what they say, if I can get my technology to work. Ms. Fritzen, don't look so bored or excited to be here. Anyway, I don't want to waste any time. I'm having my screen is freezing up here and I'm having a problem getting to it. But essentially, gun safety is definitely tightened in New Jersey with this new legislation. We'll put it on our website so that people can see it tomorrow. And we're really happy for the governor's leadership in that. But I'm still concerned. I'm still very concerned. And I want to know what we can do here locally. I know that we're preempted in a lot of ways by state and federal legislation, but I want to know what we can do here locally. What can we do to tell our residents that we're trying to make things even safer in our township of Maplewood? So, should we adopt an ordinance that says that you can't carry in a park? That you can't carry in a government office, that you can't carry, downtown. I don't know. I don't know if we have, if we're preempted from doing that, and I don't know if that would be helpful to us. Will it merely be symbolic and performative? Does it even matter? I mean, if God forbid something tragic happened in our town, wouldn't our residents want to see us do everything that we can do, even symbolic and performative gestures, anything that we can do? We can say as public elected officials, we have done everything that we can to be safe. So I just want to open it up for discussion. I'm going to let our public safety chair, Mr. McGeehee, speak first if he's so inclined.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think one of the challenges that we have is that so a couple of years ago, worked hard with the county to try to get a gun buyback program, but the funding wasn't there. And also the narrative was that, Maplewood is a safe community. There's no need for, there's other communities. And of course, those gun buyback programs are more central to other municipalities in our county. That being said, I think working with organizations like Moms Demand Action, who's done a phenomenal job and continue to put that pressure makes a lot of sense. We asked the governor to sign multiple bills that are going to help us, but also we're fighting against a federal government that doesn't see it the way we do, and a Supreme Court that clearly doesn't. So it comes down to education and awareness, and making sure that as individuals legally bring firearms to our community, understand the ramification, they have the right training and things along those lines as well. At this point, that's what we can do. I mean, we can pass, we can obviously, make statements and proclamations and resolutions, but at the end of the day, I think it's about education and about also working with our constituents that support us in our ways at the highest level to push and protect our community. And that's what I would recommend moving forward. So we educate at the municipal level and work at the federal level down for real continuation of real legislation.
Thank you, Public Safety Chair McGeehee. I appreciate your thoughts. Deputy Mayor DeLuca.
Thank you, Mayor. So, we passed an ordinance some years ago to prohibit smoking in the parks and in our public buildings, because we thought it was in the interest of public health and public safety that we do that. And I absolutely think that we ought to pass an ordinance outlawing the possession of a gun in our parks, in public buildings, and that ought to be noticed. We have a number of people that go through our parks, that we have people that rent our facilities, and we ought to have something so that everyone knows that bringing a weapon into our buildings is not acceptable and not permitted. And we ought to pass an ordinance in that regard. Additionally, I think that we ought to work with our business community, and we ought to create a program where our businesses can voluntarily designate themselves as gun-free businesses, and that we ought to support that, and we ought to publicize that. Because I think that I would prefer to be in a restaurant that was a gun-free restaurant than a restaurant that took no position. And so I think at least those two things we ought to outlaw the possession of a gun in any public facility. And we ought to work with our business improvement districts, Chamber of Commerce, to create a voluntary gun-free business zone.
Thank you. I like those ideas. I certainly, I'm not sure how we can incentivize businesses to do that. Some would be pro and some would not want to really step into it, as it were. But certainly the local ordinance, I would move that tonight if we can. But let's hear from the rest of our colleagues. Committee Member Cripe.
I think everything that everyone has said is actually very profound and extremely important for us to get a move on this and not consider it something symbolic. So long as we also extend it to the protection of our children as well. I think with all public spaces, I think we had mentioned the businesses and we've mentioned our public buildings and all facilities, that our schools, our kids don't feel safe right now. They just don't. And in making it where you cannot within, I'm spitballing their number here, 500 feet. If you can't have a joint within 500 feet of a school, you sure as heck shouldn't have a handgun anywhere. So extending it that way as well. And the education piece as well, that we're not saying that owning a gun is a horrible thing. As a former gun owner, I don't feel that it is. My family on both sides are hunters and law enforcement. They're used as tools, but they're not supposed to be paraded around. There's a responsibility that a gun owner has to maintain. And there just is no reason for it to be in a public space or in a school or in a business, unless it's a shooting. There's no reason for it. So I'm 100% in agreement. And I think we should say and do something here and there to make that possible.
Thank you for your thoughtful remarks, Committee Member Cripe. Committee Member Adams?
Well, I think you probably know how I feel. Anything that we can do locally that we are not superseded by the state, we should. I think we should treat this like a public health issue. We were mandating masks everywhere. We can, mandate no guns. Anywhere we can mandate it, I'm 100% in favor. Not sure. I mean, I don't know the penalties and all the stuff we get in the weeds of what happens if someone is caught with possessing a weapon in a place that we have said is not permitted. But I think those should be criminal if they can be, but also stiff fines. So I'm all for whatever we can do. And I think we should look at it through the lens of public health, because I think that gives it a little clarity in what we can regulate.
I love it.
Can I just say something about the state preemption here? We ought to move forward and not worry about the state. I think that Maplewood has always been a model municipality, and let's do it, and then let the state come back and say we're doing something wrong. Let them just define why what we're doing is not correct. I think what we're doing is right, and we ought to just do it.
Agreed. I will offer Township Attorney Desideri the opportunity to address this if he so is inclined. Mr. Desideri?
I will tell you that I have, regardless of my personal feelings, I have this issue of being a constitutional officer and supporting the Constitution of the United States that we swear to all the time. And the Supreme Court has said that the Second Amendment is still a valid portion of the Constitution of the United States, whether we like it or not. And that conflicts me because it's part of my job is to not prohibit you, but to advise you against legislation that I think is unconstitutional. If you want to do this, we'll do the research. As Ms. Adams says, tell me what the penalties are. What is it if a police officer sees a gun on someone, what are we going to do to that person? We're going to arrest them? We're going to incarcerate them? There's ramifications to this if you're going to do it as an ordinance, more than just symbolic. So tell me what you want to do, and we'll do the research. We'll give you a memo, and then you'll tell me what to do.
And Mayor, if I may, that's what my point was. And Roger, you kind of beat my fire. I do have I think we need to flesh this out as reservations because, if a police officer does approach an individual in our park and they have a weapon, what is the training? What's the process there? Because we are kind of putting our own law enforcement in harm's way in that regard. So I want us to think thoroughly about what we're talking about here before we just pass an ordinance. So I concur with our attorney.
Yep. And that's what we do usually, do we not? With all of our ordinances, we don't just pass them. We engage in a thoughtful process.
Yeah, it's just that we're talking about weapons. And so it's a little higher, stakes are high here because now you're telling someone who has a gun, it's theoretically, the stakes are high here. So I agree with that, but I think we really need to think this through.
Yep, definitely. And just for the record, the Supreme Court's decision did allow the states to restrict carry in certain places. And of course, they chose the courts because that's where they sit. That was a little self-serving, was it not? And they did give the states the power to add other public spaces as restrictions to possession. So
Right.
that power was already given. All we would be doing is emulating that essentially in our local township. But yes, we have a lot of things to figure out. And we'll do that through public safety with input from our law enforcement experts, and through code, we will make it happen. What I was hoping tonight was for us to come together like this toward a local effort. And I thank you for supporting my vision in that. So more on that to come as it comes together with all the details. And thank you, Mr. Desiderio, for your always important and valuable input. So this brings us to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
I'll do the motion, Mayor, because I had to clean it up. I'm going to move items A through G, which is 229, 233 through 238, and then also I, which is 239, and J and K. Note that there's redundancy. If you look at H, that's 233-22, which is also already on the consent agenda as well. So H is also the same as B. So therefore, I'm moving A through G, but saying we should omit H. So A through G, and then I, J, and K, which is 229, 233 through 238, and then 239 through J and K, which is the minutes. You'll know
Second.
that. Yeah.
Roll call.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Cripe?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor Dafis?
Yes. Thank you. Can we get a motion on the approval of the regular session minutes for the January 18th meeting?
I moved those already.
Oh, you
I
did?
moved those. Yeah.
Yeah, we should always keep them all in.
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay, public comment, second period, any subject matter. Mr. Waltz, I turn it over to you.
Good evening, Mayor and Township Committee. We'll now begin the second public comment portion of our meeting on any subject matter. If any meeting attendee would like to address the Township Committee, please use the raise your hand function, and we will convert you to a panelist. I remind you, please turn your camera on when addressing the Township Committee, please. Mayor, first we have Heather Soslovsky. We'll convert you to a panelist. Allow you 3 minutes to speak.
Good evening. First, I just wanted to note as a member of the Maplewood Stock Canopy Committee that in fact, today is the deadline, not yesterday. So please, if you got an email and have not responded, you have about 2.5 hours to do so, whether you won or are on the wait list or whatever the case may be. We still have outstanding messages. We've texted, we've emailed. We would really like people to have an opportunity to respond. So if by chance you're watching tonight, you can still respond for the next 2.5 hours. Secondly, I wanted to comment on the gun conversation you were just having. Ms. Davenport, I know, was involved with a number of community members in providing data and information to the school district, and the school district will be sending out and having each family sign off on having received that information about gun safety. I think it might be helpful if the town also did some public reporting out of those very same pieces of data. I think most families in our community who have firearms do so out of the thought that they're protecting their family. And if they had more information on how to safely secure those firearms, they may very well do so. If they understood what the statistics are and the risks, particularly to young people, tweens, teens, young adults, in being able to access those, I think they might take additional precautions. And I'm aware, I've spoken to, I think, each and every one of you at some point about this issue. I know that none of you are for a full, no one should ever have a gun, but in fact want common sense changes to ensure that, all right, maybe at least one of you just wants law enforcement to, at least you'd want law enforcement to have guns, I believe. Anywho, so I think that that's one thing you can do that I don't think Mr. Desiderio would be concerned about. With respect to the thing that he is concerned about, I would implore you to go forward. Do something similar to New York, be very specific in your restrictions. I obviously you do need to discuss what the ramifications would be, but I would suggest in and near schools, in and near daycares. We know in Maplewood, and we've run into that issue. In our public parks, where you restrict many things already, on public transit, including our jitneys, in township buildings, in any location that has alcohol sales, whether that be a liquor store or a restaurant with an alcohol
30
permit.
seconds.
And in marijuana dispensaries. Those are very specific locations where you have specific needs that you can explain legally why you would want to prohibit there. Separately, with respect to the 2% from marijuana sales, I would say if the apothecarium projections were anywhere near true, there's going to be a lot coming in. And I would urge you to consider what the CBOP has been suggesting, which includes a public
10 seconds.
about adolescent brain development in marijuana. Additionally, given the racial impact that was mentioned, some of that money could go towards the pool.
Oh, I was muted. I wanted to thank Mrs. Lofsky for her thoughtful remarks. Thank you. Mr. Waltz, do we have another member of the public?
I see no one there.
Okay, so we're going to close our public comment period, our second and final, and we're going to move over to the review of Greenlift LLC's license application, cannabis license application for cultivation license. Do we have the Greenlift team, Assistant Administrator Barnett?
Yes, I'll be moving them over shortly.
Thank you.
How are you? Just waiting on AJ.
It looks like we are. Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Burnett, what's happening?
AJ should be moved over now. I'm not sure.
I see him.
Are
He's
you
got to put his camera on and his mic on.
Okay. Do we have everyone we need?
Yep. Sorry.
Not a problem. Please proceed. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Bo Huck. I'm here on behalf of Greenlift, and my client is trying to log in. AJ, do we got you?
Do you hear me?
There we go.
We do.
Excellent. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Daffis, Deputy Mayor DeLuca, committee members Adams, McGehee, and Kripe, township officials, and members of the public.
Can we get excuse me, can we get your camera on?
My camera is on. How do I? Chris, can you help me? I'm trying to get my son to help me. Is that the camera?
Back up.
All right.
There you go.
You did a good job.
Thank you. That's my 10-year-old. He has proved he knows a lot more about technology than me.
I understand.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again, everybody. My name is AJ Kejriwal. I'm a co-founder of Greenlift LLC. We also have the management team of the company on the call. Dr. Mitu Singhal here with me.
Hello, everyone.
Vinny Jain is on the call. And then we have our two attorneys, Bo Hawk and Sal Anderton. So on behalf of the company and our team, I would like to thank the council committee members for affording us the opportunity to present today. Our company is proposing to set up a cannabis cultivation facility at an industrial zone site in Maplewood at 97-99 Newark Way. Greenlift has already been awarded a conditional license for cannabis cultivation by the state of New Jersey and is now seeking a resolution of support from Maplewood Township for a proposed facility. And we have already submitted a comprehensive application to the township in this regard. Just a quick overview of our company and the application. Greenlift is a minority and women-owned business and is pursuing entry into the New Jersey adult use cannabis industry and intends to grow and sell high-quality, premium and exclusive strains of cannabis and sell to licensed retailers and manufacturers in the state. Greenlift is not a retailer and will not be selling directly to consumers in Maplewood. Greenlift plans to have an indoor grow facility, and the goal is to grow the best quality cannabis in a safe, legal, and compliant manner. The cannabis industry, as you may be aware, is highly regulated and everything is tracked and monitored. State law requires all cannabis establishments to account for all of their inventory at every stage of its development and production. This enables tracking of every legal product back to the original source plant, and agencies are able to ensure no illicit cannabis enters the regulated market and no cannabis products are diverted or sold unlawfully outside of the market. Our grow facility is being designed and built to feature state-of-the-art technology with forward-looking green practices, safety, security, and compliance. These three are critical components of our operations. Greenlift will hire a professional engineer to design the cultivation facility. It will be designed with a modern and professional look and feel to create a safe and comfortable environment for the workers and to ensure a healthy indoor grow environment for the plants. The facility will be designed to be compliant with all state and local construction, fire, and security codes. Greenlift is committed to keeping the facility and community safe and will be implementing a comprehensive security plan. Key elements of the plan include a state-of-the-art security alarm system for the facility with cameras and motion sensors throughout the facility, locked doors, and protocols for visitor entry to the facility. The building has ample off-street parking with space for more than 20 vehicles. This is much more than required by township ordinance and will ensure traffic in the area will not be adversely affected. Also, since this is not a retail site, there will not be any traffic associated with any flow of retail customers. Greenlift selected Maplewood to open this facility due to the active efforts of the city council to revitalize the community. These efforts inspired our team, and we believe that it can and should be a critical role for our business to play a role in the quality of life of the community. Our founders believe that we have an important fiduciary obligation to be a good neighbor and to provide benefits to our community as part of our mission. The founders, we live in a town bordering Maplewood, and we want City Council to see us as partners in driving the mission for a better Maplewood. Greenlift is and will be dedicated to the community. Our collective growth and commitment to one another will drive mutual benefits. In addition to the 2% transfer tax, which is mandated by township ordinance, Greenlift is committed to contributing toward the education efforts for kids of the Maplewood School District especially from lower income families, to give them a better shot at life and opportunities. To this end, Greenlift has committed to sponsor free SAT prep program run by the Best in Class Institute in collaboration with the Maplewood School District. We would also strive to make contributions to the food pantry on Springfield Ave. Greenlift would strive to contribute to the township's new library project to help construct this new library for the township. Additionally, we would seek to promote events and webinars to help drive welfare and knowledge in the community. These include webinars on how to expunge cannabis records, infographics and webinars on quality cannabis education and on substance abuse, and also resources for victims of domestic violence. Lastly, Greenlift would strive to provide employment locally and endeavor to hire residents of the township and to build a diverse workforce. To sum up, Greenlift is, we intend on being an example of operational excellence on how best to operate a grow facility to produce high quality cannabis in a consistent manner. Greenlift is committed to the continuous improvement of the cannabis plant and will work to advancing research at the genetic level. We also plan to take every effort to be socially responsible neighbors in the community and engage in extensive outreach, such as hiring and public investment. With that, I thank you again, and the team and I are happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kejriwal. Am I saying your last name correctly? Did I pronounce that correctly?
You're very close. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Would you correct me, please, so I could be close?
You are very close. It's Kejriwal, 3 syllables.
Kejriwal. There you go.
There you go.
Thank you. It's good to see you and your wife, and thank you for taking the opportunity to present to us, in addition to the materials, as you noted, that you've already submitted to our review team, which is how we've got you to this step forward this evening. I feel like it's Christmas tonight with all the promises that you made in terms of giving back to the community. We're grateful for your partnership in that regard, but let's get serious and talk about some of the issues and concerns that maybe my colleagues are going to have in their questioning, and certainly members of the public are going to want to know. I just want to note for the record again that the property that we're talking about here is on Newark Way in Maplewoods Industrial Zone. Yes?
That's correct. 97-99 Newark Way. That's industrial zone.
Terrific. Can you walk us a little bit through the process of cultivation? What happens, walk us through the different parts of the plant and what happens to it once you're done with it in your facility and it needs to be shipped out, delivered to retailers, as you noted.
Excellent. Thank you for the question, Mr. Mayor. So as I mentioned in my prepared remarks, this industry is highly regulated and it's all good. The state law requires cannabis establishments to account for all of their inventory at every stage of its development and production. This helps with tracking of the plant, tracking of all the product back to the original source, including the seed, right? So this is, the intention is to prevent illegal trafficking and so that the business can be conducted in the state in a legal and compliant manner. We expect New Jersey will be using Metric, which is a web-based software. This is an inventory control system which uses radio frequency identification technology, where plants will be tagged and they'll be tracked from seed to sale. What that means is anytime you plant a seed, you have to enter that in the software. So the seed gets tagged, and then from there on, you track the growth, and there are stages where you report that growth in the software. And the software is, it reports back to the commission, right? So it's expected New Jersey will use this system called Metric, where all of this data will be tracked at every stage. Now, in terms of the stages of growth, so very quick overview, and I'm not going to bore you with the details on hydroponic cultivation, but that's kind of what the facility will be using. So there will be a nursery where you plant the seeds, you grow seedlings. Once the seedlings achieve a certain height, you go to what's known as the flowering room. So that's where the plants grow to a certain height. And then you take the flowers, you harvest the flowers and pack them. So the packaging is also, it's highly regulated. What you can do and cannot do with the packaging is highly regulated. You track, as I said, you would enter the product, the description, the weights in the system, and you can only sell to licensed entities. So Greenlift would be selling its product to licensed entities like manufacturers or retailers. Initially, our plan is to sell flour. So we would be selling to retailers in the state. We could be selling other parts of the plant. So the non-flour part of the plant are called trimmings. Now, not all of the non-flour plant has usable THC, right? So to the extent there are sugar leaves, they have THC, those could be sold to manufacturers who could convert that or who could process those sugar leaves, either extracting oil, or they could convert that into some other product. The rest of the plant, which is basically very, very low THC and it's not really usable, that plant has to be, that portion of the plant has to be disposed of. And there are regulations as to how you dispose of that material. We will be following all those regulations. What basically is done is that material will be processed through machine like a wood chipper. So you break it down into fine pieces and then you mix basically soil and sand so that that waste product becomes non-usable. And then that is discarded. Right?
Thank you for the overview. That was well done. Talk to us a little bit about, and this is also highly regulated, talk to us about odor mitigation during this process, because that's going to be a concern.
Excellent. Thank you for the question. So as I said, we will be setting a facility with state-of-the-art equipment. And one of the key elements is taking care of the odor that might be problematic or might cause concern with the neighbors. So we plan to install carbon filters. So these are 24-inch or 48-inch carbon filters. And the way these filters work, they're attached with powerful fans. So these filters will be installed in all the grow rooms, as well as any room where we are storing cannabis, right? So these filters, as I said, they're attached with powerful fans. The fans suck the air in those rooms, pass them through those filters. Now, the carbon in those filters absorbs these odors. And once the odor is absorbed, the air is recirculated back into those rooms, right? So these equipment, state-of-the-art, should help mitigate odor.
Wonderful. And what about discharge? You talked about waste, right? With respect to the unusable, excuse me, part of the plant. What about other waste and discharge?
So thank you for the questions, Mayor. Cannabis plant uses a lot of water, right? There is water used for the growth of the plant. We plan to use or recycle a lot of that water through the use of a reverse osmosis system, right? So what that system will do is that the runoff from the plant, it will capture that runoff. It's going to filter through a process of RO, and we're going to be able to use that water back. So it saves water, and it also prevents those nutrients from going into the city's sewer system, right? So we plan to be recycling and using a lot of the water and minimizing any nutrient seepage into the city sewer system.
So you don't expect any runoff into the sewer system that might be contaminated?
That's my expectation. That would be what the engineers would be instructed to install. I know that the RO systems recycle the bulk of the water, right? So if there is some water that gets evaporated or goes into the system, but the bulk of the water is recycled and fed back to the plants. And on the nutrients, the RO system extracts all the nutrients from that runoff.
Terrific. And what about noise and light mitigation? I'm thinking of fans that might need to be on all night, light bulbs that may need to operate through the night. Can you educate us about that?
Yes, so light is a big component. Since we are growing indoors, this is all artificial lights, and it's actually a big cost element for any cultivation facility to be using artificial light instead of sunlight, right? And these are high-powered lights that we would be using because basically we are trying to replicate the power of the sun. Now, this facility is like a closed box, right? So it's a closed box. Those lights will be inside and you would not see light outside. It's not energy efficient for the facility to be losing energy. And this would be part of the plan. And this is how most indoor grow facilities are built, where the light remains on the inside of that box. In terms of noise, it's not really a big issue that we see in the industry. There are fans, these are regular fans that are used inside the facility. We would have an HVAC system, so these would be compressors, but it's not heavy machinery. Now, this is a standalone building. It's in an industrial zone. I do not expect noise to be a big issue coming out of this facility.
Terrific. And I have one final question, and I'll open the floor to my colleagues. And that relates to when you expect the frequency of your drop-offs and pickups and how you see that happening so it has minimal impact, again, on the neighboring community.
So thank you for the question again, Mr. Mayor. It's really hard for me to, at this point, give any definite number. What I will say is that the cultivation is very different from a retail business, right? So retail, products gonna come in every day or every few days, and there's just a lot of traffic from customers, retail customers. So with cannabis cultivation facility, you're not harvesting, you're harvesting every few weeks, few months, okay? You harvest and you store, and from store, then you are dispatching and selling, right? In terms of trucks coming in, there's not a lot of material being used. You get fertilizer, you get consumables, and you're probably getting them once in a while and storing them, especially with the supply chain issues, you got to maintain inventory. With regards to dispatching of product, I would be surprised if it's more than a few times a week. Again, it's really difficult for me to say at this point because we would be setting up operations, but I understand the spirit of your question with regards to traffic and all. We don't anticipate this to be a major issue.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for answering all of my questions. And I'm going to open the floor to the rest of my colleagues. I see that committee member Kripe has had her hand up since the beginning. So committee member Kripe, please proceed.
Thank you, Mayor. I have concerns. I live in that neighborhood, actually 2 blocks away from where you're looking at building. This is the first I've heard that cultivation is going to go into that location. And after speaking to a few members of my neighborhood, they're shocked too. Was there or has there been any conversation with the residents? Because I can tell you, as someone who has to literally drive by that spot every day, traffic is going to be an issue. You're right next door to the plumbing supply place, and they already block the road more often than I like. Same with the other neighbors who live in that area. So adding, even as you said, only a few times a week, once things happen, that's a lot. Around the corner from there is also another delivery group that now has a police officer presence to keep people from double and triple parking and blocking Rutgers in that area. So I'm already concerned about parking traffic, and that is as a resident of that neighborhood, not even just as a person in the community. So I want to know, is any conversation or are there any plans in place to speak to the neighbors to assess what their concerns are? This is going to affect our quality of life. I know you said that there's not going to be a large issue with the noise of fans, but if we're talking industrial fans, that's a problem, because that neighborhood, that actual location is not even 50 yards from a home. So they'll hear it, and the home next to them probably as well, and then the one across the street. So there's a few things that concern me about this, and it kind of boils down to nobody in the neighborhood was informed of this, and it's kind of just it's concerning and disappointing. So what are the plans to speak to the neighbors?
Committee member Kripe, thank you for your question, and we appreciate your concerns. Let me address the parking and the traffic issue first. So the parking, we have off-site parking. There is a lot attached to the building that the landlord has agreed to lease to us. That lot has about a space for about 26 spots. And as I said, there's just more than sufficient, more than meets the requirements of the ordinance. The facility, we initially would have only up to 10 employees, right? And we're not expecting, this is not a retail store. We are not expecting retail customers to come in and there'll be no sales on site to retail customers. So we do not expect retail traffic. To the extent we have employees and to the extent there are visitors, there would be parking, ample parking, there are 26 spots available. And as I said, we would have only up to 10 employees initially. That's what's allowed by license. So we respectfully, we do not anticipate, we would not let people double park on the street because we have that facility. To your point, some of the neighboring businesses, they might be parking on the street, but they probably do not have the luxury of that lot that this site has. So hopefully that addresses the question. Now, to your question about engagement with the neighbors, we absolutely will engage with neighbors. We will address their concerns. And this is part of what we want to do. We want to be good neighbors for the township and in that community, and definitely surrounding the facility. You raised the question of fans and the noise. Look, the facility is not yet up. It's in the process of being designed. And I'll tell you, based on what I have seen, I've visited multiple facilities throughout the country. And noise is not one of the top issues for cultivation, indoor cultivation. Yes, there are fans, but these fans the noise would not be large enough to permeate those walls of the facility. So respectfully, I would try to submit that noise would not be an issue.
It would be a concern also with the smells and the waste disposal. The neighborhood is vocal and active and will have questions and concerns. So my questions are based off of my experiences as a resident, as well as I just had to work and speak with them regarding even that intersection with the stop signs. A lot of conversations went in that community before those signs even went into place. So I'm concerned about the fact that the cultivation business operation about to be installed. Hasn't been brought up to any of the residents in the cross streets, let alone the rest of it. So that's my concern. Mayor, thank you for your time. Thank you for your time, Mr. Visual.
Visual.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, my name is Sal Anderton. I'm the real estate attorney for the applicant, and I just wanted to take a moment to address Committeewoman Cripe's comment. You heard Mr. Kedrawal indicate that we could do, and intend to do a community forum. We're not in the site yet, and the site's still being constructed. So I think that certainly we could do that sort of outreach or community forum with the surrounding neighbors once we have the ability to, when we know we could operate, and then also before we operate. But I also wanted to just point out for the committee that this is a micro business application, right? So the building that you see there, Committeewoman, when you pass by each day, is, I want to say it's about 10,000 square feet, right? But this building, or this operation, will be limited in square footage to only 2,500 square feet as a micro business. So the whole size, or the whole internal space of the building, will not be utilized for the business.
Thank you for the follow-up, Mr. Anderton. Appreciate that. Deputy Mayor DeLuca.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Mr. Anderton, now that you mentioned that, so if it's 10,000 square feet, you're only using 2,500. What's the other 7,500 for?
AJ, you want to take that question?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor DeLuca, for the question. So, as a business, Greenlift, our vision is to run the business as efficiently as we can, and our vision is to grow our business to much beyond where we would start, and that's our hope as well. State law allows micro businesses to convert and grow their license, and that's our hope, that over time we'd be able to grow and expand into that facility. Initially, micro licenses are limited in terms of the number of plants and the canopy size. So that additional space would be something that would help us, that would be in our reserve, so as to speak. And our hope is to be able to expand into at least some of that space over time. Now, the other point I would make is that, look, even though we would want a space smaller, because we don't want to be paying rent on that large space right out of the gate, but it's really hard to find a space exactly with, say, 3,000, 4,000 square feet. We have to take the space that's available in the market. And as you may know, there aren't too many warehouses available. So we were lucky, we found this, and we think it fits with our vision to grow over time.
So I want to compliment you on your honesty, but I must tell you that your response has tipped me into a no vote. I mean, I have a bunch of questions which I'm going to go through because I don't know how my colleagues feel, but I will tell you that I'm going to be voting against this because it's one thing. When I read this as a small operation. And if you're moving from 2,500 to 10,000, even if you doubled it, it's just more intense. And that's more employees and more trucks and more this and more that and more potential to negatively impact the community. So, so again, thank you for your honesty. A couple of questions on the odor. You did mention in your application that you're talking about the filters, the 48-inch and 24-inch carbon filters. Do you have you identified a product? What kind of a odor eater is this? What kind of a odor, what kind of a product is this? Is there a name of a product that we could check out?
No, so thank you again for the question. So these filters use carbon, and activated carbon is used widely to absorb organic odors. The product basically works by pulling air through that activated carbon filter, and the filter absorbs those odors. There are multiple products in the market. As I said, you'll be having an engineer design and spec those products. When we have those brand names available, we are happy to share. But there are multiple brands available out there.
Right.
Using
but you can imagine that, we're being asked tonight in July to make a decision, give you a license, but we don't know what the product is. We have no way of knowing whether you're going to go top of the line or midline or even, below the line. I would love to have our engineer take a look at this and give us his analysis. So that's a concern I have.
Can I address that concern?
Sure.
Luca? So the way the process works is, and this is at the state level and with almost all facilities. So say once we am hoping to get the resolution, we would go, so we have a conditional license, right, from the state. We have to go through a process called conversion of the conditional to an annual license. And as part of that conversion process, we would be submitting detailed specs and plans to the state. And we would then be coming to the township and we'll be sharing those plans. So the state would be going through those detailed plans with regards to the equipment being used, with regards to how we are taking care of security, safety, odor, noise, and things like that. And we'll be sharing that with the township, and we'll be coming back applying for construction permits. And that would be another opportunity where we'll be sharing with township on what equipment we'll be using. So
Right.
this is,
yeah,
yes.
I appreciate that, but that really doesn't, I look at a minimum, if this gets approved, there needs to be a condition on knowing what the odor control is going to be and some ability for us to sign off on that. Because you're just asking, I can understand the state, but the state is not us. We have to feel confident that what you're putting in there is the top of the line and going to protect the residents.
Councilman, may I? Bo Huck with Porzio, Bromberg and Newman. And first off, thank you all for just being organized. I was saying to my colleague Sal, it's kind of refreshing to see a town council that's actually functional. Mayor, you said something earlier before that kind of caught my ear. I'm relatively new to actually practicing in the legal space. Prior to that, I was with state government for the last 6 years working for the Senate. And one of the things that kind of really caught my ear was when you said the state has all the cards here, basically. It's the other way around. The municipalities do. Every step of the way, you guys basically get to have some type of approval here. Right now, the state where we're trying to get approval to is a local resolution of support. The reason we're trying to do that right now is because we're in the conditional license phase. We can't even convert to a micro license and an annual micro license until we get that. That's got to come at the very tail end of this phase. 120 days, 165 days, they're likely going to give us that 45-day extension. Let's assume we actually get that. Let's assume we get that resolution tonight. And let's assume that AJ has a viable business with his wife and they bust their you-know-what off, because it's just not an easy business to get into. When it comes time, if they were to say to themselves, wow, this is a good time to expand, or maybe this is maybe a really difficult position. Maybe we need to figure out, is there a way to lease out that other side of the building for something else? There's got to be a discussion at some point, though, with the town as to whether or not they can expand, because they have to go to the state saying they've gotten all the local approvals to do that expansion as well. So when you do get to a facility that's, let's say, 5,000, 10,000 square feet, that's not actually a very large grow facility. The number of employees doesn't exactly jump by, a proportional amount of, if they have 10 now, they'll have 40 at, 10,000 square feet. It'd likely be about 20. And right now, just going again with the amount of product that they'll have available, the growth cycle of this plant is between 3 to 6 months. It takes a while. You have a very limited physical plant capacity. It's actually gotten so ridiculous that the CRC at the recent meeting finally acknowledged that, hey, we probably shouldn't include the break room and the bathroom in the physical plant of these facilities, because it really does, eat into the space. Amazon workers do have to go to the bathroom, and people that have to go to the bathroom, and you have to have a place to eat your lunch sometimes. Shouldn't have to be on the floor of where you're actually trying to do your work. I just really wanted to chime in here to really, really emphasize just how much power the town has, and where we really are at right now is just trying to get that green light to say, this is the next step we're going to, because while you're going into that conditional phase, it doesn't entirely make sense economically to start saying, I'm going to develop all my standard operating procedures and have the full architectural build out and actually begin to procure all these different things until a town actually does say yes.
Okay, so you kind of interrupted me, but that's okay.
I apologize.
I just on a couple of questions on deliveries. That has a loading dock there, which is about maybe 6 feet off the curb. Do you intend to use that loading dock?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and how will you be using it?
So we would be working with the security company on figuring out how to secure that space. And hopefully, once we secure the space, we'd be able to build some kind of ramp so that a small vehicle could go in and we'd be able to load and unload inside the facility.
So you'll be creating like a sally port for a vehicle to go in there?
So some kind of a ramp.
A ramp. So would you have because right now the only way to use that is to block the sidewalk with the vehicle and to stick out in the street.
That's if you use a large vehicle. So this would be, remember, we're not talking trailers. This is product that would be packaged in small boxes, right? So these are small vans that would be used for delivery. And our hope is to be able to have a ramp and get the vehicle inside the facility and load and unload inside.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I'd like to, that's, okay. That would be something that I'd want to make sure that we understand that, because I think any condition, if this gets approved, it has to be that you can't block the sidewalk and the street with any deliveries. The parking lot across the street, right now, it's pretty much open. There are signs that say no parking, towing and all that, but will you chain the entrances? Do you see securing that parking lot and all?
That would be something that we would have to figure with the security company. It's a parking lot, which would be primarily used for parking employee cars and visitor cars.
Right.
We'd have to figure out what kind of security requirements are. And if fencing has to be put in place, we would do that. We would come to Township as part of our construction permit request with fencing. But that again is something that the architects and the security companies would have to provide their inputs.
On the waste, you explained that, well, you're going to put it through the chopper and all that. Do you see any storage of waste outside, or will all the waste be stored inside?
So again, we will be, figuring out all the details. What I can tell you is we will be identifying appropriate landfill sites that accept that waste. Now, if those landfill sites, they send their vehicles to collect the waste, if we can store it inside, we would store the waste inside.
And what if you can't store it inside? Where will you store it?
We have a lot of space, so I'm hoping we'll be able to store the waste inside. And then they can send the vehicle in and pick up the waste from inside the facility.
And what about regular garbage pickup and recycling? How will you deal with that?
So garbage pickup with most cultivation facilities is in locked dumpsters. The dumpsters outside the facility, they are always locked. And what I've heard from other facilities that despite people knowing that there's nothing in the facility, those sometimes there are people who rummage through the garbage. But the key is not to throw or not to dispose of any THC containing material in those dumpsters.
And where would you put that dumpsters? Your building is pretty much corner to corner.
Yes, so that dumpster would be, one of the spots would be in the parking garage, in the parking lot, and that would mean we would have to put a fencing. But as I said, that garbage is non-THC. And just like the other industrial facilities, we would be having a dumpster for regular garbage.
Okay, and I just have two more questions. On in your write-up, you talk about the public having no reason to come into the building. Who do you mentioned visitors a couple of times, that visitors will be able to park across the street. Who do you define as a visitor? Who do you see as either your visitors or your customers? Who you do business with?
So good question. Thank you. So non-employees would be visitors. Now, who could be part of the non-employee group could be vendors, right? So say there's a lot of software and technology being used, and to the extent we are using, say, GrowFlow or one of those software companies, and they have an engineer who comes in to give a demo, right? So that would be one category of visitors. Right now, say there are other suppliers who supply material and they come in to make their presentations. Those would be visitors, right? Now, to the extent there are, say, retailers who send their reps for discussions, those would be visitors. But there would not be retail customer visitors at the facility, because as a cultivation facility, we are not licensed to sell to retail customers.
Okay, my last question is, I know you talked in your write-up about an operations manager. How much time will the two of you spend there? You look like you're both fully engaged in full-time work. How much time will you actually spend there?
I will be spending a lot of my time at the facility in managing the facility, the day-to-day operations, as well as in managing the employees, hiring key people. I have a lot of experience working in a number of businesses across companies. I've worked on Wall Street at large investment banks. I've worked in healthcare. I have a lot of experience with dealing with complex regulations. And as you know, this industry is highly regulated. There's a lot of regulations and laws that we have to comply with. And I think that experience that I have will come in handy. I intend to be fully hands-on. This is not an absentee owner business. I intend to be fully hands-on. I live a couple miles from where that facility is. And one of the reasons, other than we love Maplewood, one of the reasons why we chose Maplewood is that we'll be able to be there multiple times in a day for multiple hours.
Okay, thank you.
Committee Member Adams.
Thank you. I have a couple questions that go toward the timeline of with regard to, and maybe either Sarah or Mr. Hutch could answer this. Like, is it how long do they have to stay a micro business, for example, before they can expand and grow that?
So, it's a bit of an odd situation as is right now. A lot of people think that this is going to happen very, very quickly. It's not happening as fast as people even think. So where they are at right now, since the granting of the entering the conditional phase, they have 120 days under the regs to convert to a regular micro business. But everybody's pretty much already been granted a 45-day extension from there. Then it can take anywhere between, let's assume they started their build out like immediately as soon as they got the building. It can take a good 8 months to 10 months to get a facility even this small operational and having their first harvest. So from there they have to, and upon that like very final site inspection by the CRC, when they actually get the license in hand, they have to have that and be running like that for an entire year before they may even apply to the CRC for any type of expansion. Which means going to you first.
So right, that's what I was just going to say. So any expansion, they come to this board, this governing body to decide whether or not, or the parameters, almost like a planning board application, right? So that we would have to, we'd ask a lot of the questions that Mr. DeLuca was just asking and make sure that those were conditions of approval of expansion, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
If I may for one moment, then similarly, by the time we get 18, 24 months or whatever that might be, and then frankly, depending on a whole host of factors, but before there was any consideration of expansion, the community would have experience, right? So then perhaps by that point, for sure, by that point, we would have better answers. All of us would have better answers as to, noise, traffic, odor, all those things. So I think when Mr. Huck was talking about the town really being in having a little more authority here, by that point, we would have better answers, obviously, because we'd all have experience.
Right. So we'd have personal, firsthand neighborhood, township, traffic, safety, all those things we'd learn during that micro business phase, which is at least a year. And then sounds like practically a year before you even get to the micro business opening part. Okay.
Most likely.
I appreciate all that. I think that's important. As far as product, you just growing, or are you also making other things like edibles or pre-rolls or whatever? So you just grow and then that raw product is sold to other companies that make those things and or retailers that sell?
Yes. Thank you, Committee Member Adams. Yes, so our license allows us to grow and sell flower. There is a different category of license for manufacturers, and those entities can process flour and trim into products such as gummies or solvents and oils and things like that. Our license does not allow us to process flour or trim into any other product.
And so maybe as a follow-up to that, if the attorneys could weigh in as to, is it possible or would a state approve, or have they not thought of this yet, that a cultivator could expand, right, and become a manufacturer of something else in the same facility?
In time.
I'm sorry.
AJ, do you want to take this one?
Just very quick, the license is, the state has defined these license categories very, very clearly. And as a cultivator, we are not allowed to do what manufacturing licenses are, those licensees are allowed. If we wanted to do that, we would have to apply. It would be a separate process. But as a cultivator, we have a class 1 cultivation license, and it's very narrowly defined as to what we can do. Everything outside of that is not allowed. So we are only allowed to do.
What I was asking though is if there's a possibility of then getting a manufacturer's license or the other license to do the other things I was asking about in the same facility as you grow. Yeah, Mr. Hutt.
Your local ordinance would have to permit that number of local licenses first for that to even be a consideration. In time, a license holder may become vertically integrated. But again, it's all at the control, at the whim of the local governing body as to how many they'll have. They'll have to have a local RFP, and then they'll have to have an application process with the state. So you're holding all the cards here. If you want that, and that's something your town wanted, it's something that could happen, assuming that AJ and his wife would even be interested in that. They're pretty hell bent on cultivation. And these licenses too don't even all have to be in the same town. So it just depends on, again, what the local governing body wants. It depends on what these guys want.
Okay, and my final question is with regard to disposal of the waste. That's strictly regulated, is it not, by NJDEP? As to what, like, whether, and it has to be composted and stuff. There's regulations that outline what you can and can't do with that.
It's strictly regulated through the CRC. As far as solid waste goes, it's not something that can go down, the drain or anything like that. Going back to, there are certain facilities that'll have to take this waste depending on how it's finally been spent. Keep in mind, their goal is to minimize waste as much as possible to have a product to actually sell. By the time you're left over with cannabis waste, the only time you actually have a significant amount of waste in this space is depending on your hydroponics, any type of leftover, algae, vegetation, rotten vegetation, if you have a crop that goes bad or anything of that nature. But if you're doing everything right, waste is very, very, very minimal. And keep in mind, with a facility this large, we're only talking about 1,000 plants. In time, that is not a massive amount, even if the facility was entirely maximized. Just depending on a 2,500 square foot space, 1,000 plants in that, if you're able to pull that off as a micro cultivator, it'd be very impressive.
Yeah, I think, I personally think I don't really have a problem with this application, mostly because of the amount of power we have in Mr. Hutch. I appreciate that, because I think that what you said earlier, because I think that's really important in our decision-making, personally, because we're pretty vigilant with making sure businesses and properties get maintained the way we have. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Committee Member Adams. Committee Member McGeehee.
Thank you, Mayor. It's getting late. So I have a couple of questions and give me a couple of statements. One is that this is the first time we've seen a Class 1 request, correct?
Yes.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I read the 15-page document, but I felt like between your questions and Mr. DeLuca's and Ms. Cripes and Ms. Adams that the application that we provide doesn't do a good job of providing an ability to provide some of this narrative that we've heard tonight. There are so many questions that were not really part of the application that I personally feel like I couldn't make a vote either way or not. I know we had Apothecarium came to us, that they came back to us with, with some stipulations, right, about the DNI and some other factors. And I would like to see, hopefully this group is taking notes, and I'd like to see them come back to us and answer all these questions, provide a narrative along what's been communicated. Your questions were very extensive, Mr. Lucas as well, regardless of where you might say you would vote at this time. But I feel like, to be fair to the applicant and be fair to the residents, to see them answer these questions more formally, I like to see a layout of the facility. We're talking about 2,500 square foot and 10,000 square foot. Great numbers, but I'm a tangible person. I need to see some type of design, some type of layout of what that looks like. I'd be willing to go to the facility as well. I mean, I've been to Pocketherium. I know where this is located, and I'd be happy to go for a walkthrough to kind of tangibly see what I'm voting on. But I just don't feel comfortable tonight, as a vote in this community to make a decision either way without that due diligence.
Thank you, Mr. McGeehee. So I'm going to allow the public to ask questions and then bring it back to the governing body for formal action. Mr. Waltz, do we have members of the public who are still with us at this late hour and or interested in commenting about this application?
Yes, Mayor. First up, we have Heather Soslovsky. We'll convert you to a panelist to address.
I just want to say I should be stunned, but I'm not, because just a few weeks ago, a neighbor messaged our group to say something else had passed in our neighborhood that we knew nothing about. And that was a gummy location, apparently. They admitted there would be some smell from what I hear from my neighbor. I'm unclear why there wouldn't be any admission to that on this, where clearly it seems like it would smell a whole lot stronger than some gummies being made. But whatever the case may be, you have neighbors literally right there. It is unconscionable that we know nothing about this, but for one of us last time and one of us this time sitting here and watching the TC meeting. Very few people do that, as you all know. And then to even consider voting on this without telling the neighborhood, you don't vote on stop signs without like 4 meetings and every single person signing off. It's just really stunning that this could happen in a residential, and it keeps being called an industrial zone, and it might be zoned industrial in that specific address, but this is a residential, it is a community area. You are right by a park. Children from the entire neighborhood would have to walk past that facility to get to the park. If they live in the Lightning Brook area, to get to DeHart Park, they would have to walk past if they live in that half of it. There are homes right there. No one knows anything about this. And there has to be a different process the TC uses for these applications, because this can't keep happening. It's honestly insulting. It's always our community. And I understand that's because we have the quote unquote industrial zone, but there needs to be a way that you give at least as much attention to this as you would a stop sign.
Mr. Waltz, do we have any other members of the public?
Yes, Mayor. Next, we have Sue Lowe. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. We'll convert you to a panelist tonight. 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, can everyone hear and see me?
Yes.
Okay, great. First of all, I really commend Greenlift for doing all of the research, and I really thank our government staff who are asking amazing questions. So I personally am on the Soma Action Soma Action Cannabis, Soma Action Social Justice, Cannabis and Social Equity Committee. And I have several questions. One of them, and you know what, the arrival of Apothecarium has informed our additional questions. And that's why I kept asking about security, because Apothecarium's initial security caused a lot of false alarms. And now their backyard actually is literally sharing a fence with residential homes. So that's why it's really important. Like, what kind of security are you going to have during the daytime? And what kind of security are you going to have after hours? I would love to know that there is a high-tech security system with alarms. I would love to know that there is, high-tech cameras, and I would love for there to be a guard. And I'm glad that Mr. Agee does understand that even something as your large disposal on your parking lot needs to be locked, because you just don't know. And I have to repeat that this location of 97 Newark is right next to Hart Park. And if you look on Google Maps or Apple Maps, whatever you're using, you'll see that there are literally homes across the street. So I think that we really need to think a little bit more. And I had messaged to Attorney Anderton that there is indeed a group called the Hilton Family Association. And I really urge Greenlift to speak with those who will be most directly affected. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Mr. Waltz, anyone else?
Yes, Mayor. Next, we have John Sullivan. We'll convert you to a panelist. I have 3 minutes to speak.
Mr. Sullivan?
He's unmuted and everything, but we can't hear him.
Hang on, he's getting his audio in. Mr. Sullivan, we can hear you, at least sounds coming from you, but try speaking. Uh-oh, I think you're
I
frozen.
just had it. You got me now?
Yes, yes, please proceed.
Okay, terrific. I had no intention of speaking at this meeting this evening, since I had no idea that this was even a proposal that was going to be before the Township Committee. I'm one of those individuals that lives maybe 100 feet from this proposed location. I think former Mayor McGahee said it best, that there's just way too many questions. This isn't a retail type license. Mr. Deputy Mayor DeLuca went through a litany of questions, and there was no answers to those. And all we keep hearing is, well, we'll learn from experience. Well, as someone who lives 100 feet from the front of this building and has a wife and 3 daughters in this community, and is a member of the Hilton Neighborhood Association, the fact that the first I'm hearing about this is through a local Facebook group, it's disappointing. And it has nothing to do with the applicants. It has to do with the way things have been transpiring in this space. So again, I would hope that the members of the TC would vote against this with all these outstanding questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Waltz, do we have any other members of the public who wish to be acknowledged and speak up?
I see no other hands, Mayor. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. One just pop up. It's Best in Class Education Center. We'll convert you to a panelist. 93 minutes. You're muted.
Good, there we go. Hi there. This is Dr. Lisa Gardenhire. I own Best in Class Education Center, and my business was named as a potential beneficiary to provide educational support for high school students to do SAT prep. I met these gentlemen in the last couple months, and they reached out to me to understand better our community and understand better what a give back could look like in Maplewood. I had a conversation with the school district who was looking for some SAT support for minority students who are MAC scholars. And I thought, well, the district is putting together this idea. these fellows are looking for givebacks. And so I put the two together, and we're thinking that we'd be able to support local minority students with SAT prep as part of their give back. So I just wanted to make that comment that, and then I've had conversations with them, met them, and really believe that they do have best interests of the community and their own business to move this forward. Do they have all the answers yet? No, I think they're not even in the location yet to be able to answer some of the questions. And I think all the questions that came up tonight are certainly valid, but I'd like the Township Committee to at least leave an opening to consider this application and moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Gardenhire, for your thoughtful remarks. Thank you. Any other members of the public, Mr. Waltz?
I see no one there.
Okay, great. So let's wrap this up. This is how I see this. You know, I think definitely as it relates to being, you know, the community benefits from this, the givebacks, they are impressive, but I'm a little disappointed by the presentation tonight. I really thought that we would have a best in class, if you will, answers to some of the important questions. Certainly the number one concern for me, and it came up by Deputy Mayor DeLuca and others, is odor mitigation. And it's just not enough, especially since you are, yes, you're an industrial zone in that one location, but you are encroaching on a residential community and a park nearby, as others have noted. You know, I was hoping for more information. You know, I was hoping for, oh, we're going to have this HEPA filter, which is the best in class, and it does this and it does that. I was hoping for more information about mitigation on other concerns like traffic, waste disposal. And I was sort of with you. You were very convincing. But then you said that you're hoping to expand down the road into possibly more cultivation or manufacturing or who knows what else. And despite all of the sort of like mechanics of that and the waiting periods, you have to understand that we have to be, as you need to be, incredibly sensitive and thoughtful. So I'm not prepared to vote. If I was asked to vote in favor of this evening, I would say no. But I'm open to your coming back and answering some of the questions that were left unanswered. And I will say again that I really expected a lot more from this presentation. And the application is great. I think our application is top notch. It has all the required elements. This is why we offer the opportunity for a presentation on top of the application so that we can get into the weeds. I was really hoping for a schematic so we can see a visual. I was really hoping that you would anticipate some of the residential concerns. And despite your scientific prowess and your knowledge of the industry, which is very impressive, and again, your goodwill in giving back in so many ways, as you enumerated, which is also something we're very grateful for, I feel that you came up short in answering some of these really important questions. So that's how
I would suggest we do what Mr. McGehee suggested and bring them back again another time.
Mayor, if I may.
Certainly.
Thank you. So as you all know, right, cannabis law, to the extent that it's a relatively new thing in New Jersey, one of the things that Bo and I have found in our practice is the way we're set up here under our state and of course, you know, our local governments, is that our client, whether it's this couple or some other clients, really aren't incentivized to go out and do. We can't do all this work because I would love, believe me, it's painful as a professional and a practitioner to hear you say, well, we didn't feel you were prepared. And it is difficult in this space because and this is one of the reasons why it's such a challenging practice area for business folks to get into, particularly underserved communities who don't have the resources, because we don't have approvals yet, right? And the investment up front is significant. I'm speaking a little bit out of turn, but I feel pretty confident knowing, Greenleaf, that if you continue to have a discussion with us, right, we can put together an increasingly better presentation for you.
Mr. Anderson, I'm going to stop you there because it's really late. So a couple of things. You're speaking to a very sophisticated governing body. I hope that straight up. No, let me speak. You're speaking to a very sophisticated governing body. Deputy Mayor DeLuca and I have been at the forefront of this since the very beginning when we were looking at initial legislation that had everything ironed out, but we lost that process. And now we are where we are, which is really not a good process, not for the applicants and not for the municipalities. And I really take issue with your colleagues. I'm sorry, I'm tired, so now I'm giving you real talk. I take issue with your colleagues, I forget his name, rather smug, sort of like, well, you have all this control and this is never going to happen. This is going to be very hard to happen. And if this happens, it's very impressive. Things happen. Things happen. As soon as we give you the green light, there's no way that we can enforce that you're not going to, cover the sidewalk. There's no way that we can enforce that, kids are walking by there and they smell cannabis all the time. If we let it out of the bottle, there's no way that we can put it back in. So we know the regulations. We know them really well. And we're in touch with the CRC. We know what's happening. We're connected to the lobbyists and the legislators in Trenton. We know what's going on. So please do not speak to us like that. You have been, not you yourself, but I think this entire presentation this evening has been slightly didactic. And I'm offended by that. We've asked you very thoughtful and pointed, specific questions. And certainly we're a municipality that's opened ourselves up to this. We're very progressive on this issue. So we're not like some of these other towns that are like, oh no, we can't have this element in our town. Oh my God, we're clutching our pearls. We're not doing that. We're asking you very important questions and you're hearing from the community and you're not answering them. Instead, you're telling us it's never going to happen. Hello, real talk. We've been around the block a few times, things happen, and you're telling us you don't know. Are you freaking kidding me? First of all, with all due respect, this is not an applicant that doesn't have the resources. And no disrespect to the two applicants who are here, who are very nice people and who are incredibly thoughtful, okay? No disrespect to them. But this is an applicant with resources, come on, all right? And don't tell me you can't come to me and show me what kind of filter you're going to use. And don't tell me you can't come to me and show me a schematic of ingress, egress, and space with respect to the rest of the community. Do it. You should have done it. These are easy things. These are not like, oh, we don't know what's going to happen. So I'm sorry. I wasn't going to do this, okay? But you pushed me there, and here we are. So I'm willing to have you come back, but at this moment, I cannot move forward on this application. Deputy Mayor DeLuca, where are you?
I'm a no because of the expansion. I just don't like the idea. You're buying a bigger building. It's like a liquor license. When we do a liquor license, we vote on the place to the person to person. We may like the people. We may think the people are good, but the place matters too. You have to vote on a place. And I don't doubt that these folks are really sincere and all that, but I think that they're buying an oversized place to expand. And that's not what the application for, that's not what I'm willing to vote for. So I'm a no.
Committee Member Adams.
I'm willing to listen to a better presentation and come back. I'm also not necessarily opposed to an expansion if the other questions are answered. So
Okay, thank you. Committee member Kripe.
I'm a no. I personally feel insulted that no one thought to consult the neighborhood when you can literally throw a rock and hit the first house from there, and not even really hard. You could do it under. Punching cookies at the heart could have answered a lot of the concerns, and that respect was not given to the neighborhood or the residents of it.
Committee member McGehee, one final word.
Thank you, Mayor. I think something is being missed here, and we should harness it. And that is, we heard from Ms. Solowski, from Mr. Sullivan and others asking for a dialogue. I think the applicant should be assertively reaching out to you to set up that dialogue and have it before the next conversation, regardless if we vote yes or no when they come back. But if I'm the applicant, I am assertively picking up the phone and calling you to get in touch with those community leaders in the neighborhood. And maybe that's led by Ms. Kripe, who lives area, to have that dialogue before we meet again. So those are my 2 cents. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So there you have it. You have 2 firm no's, and 3, we will reconsider if you reach out to the neighbors and you come back with more answers to our questions.
It's very fair. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for hanging in with us this late hour.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, committee members.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. No disrespect. Thank you. Okay, you're welcome to, okay. Mr. Jane is still with us.
Do all we have left is move to adjourn? Is that all we have left?
Yes, that's all we have left. So I'm
Second.
aye by acclamation.
Aye.
Aye.
Good night. See you on the 19th at 7.